Chapter 22-26. The third land of revival was only half a starting ground. At first, no one thought that there would be any accidents. Before the trial was opened, the three major forces had explored this world. Otherwise, they wouldn't have let so many people in. But now, it seemed that they had missed something. They had seen the abyss of death before, but they hadn't seen any heaven-opening realm cultivators. Therefore, they had taken it for granted that it was the place where the origin source of the world dissipated. They had never thought that there would be an ancient powerhouse that was still alive. Logically speaking, it was rare for such a situation to occur even in 10,000 primitive graves. After all, a world had become a wasteland and its origin source had been sucked dry. How could anyone still be alive? Buzz, 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 Xingyu, Qiu Shouzang, and then Taiping arrived at the cave. They didn't look for Bai Ranran and the others. Since they hadn't returned, it was only because they didn't want to. Otherwise, it wouldn't explain why none of the leaders had returned. At this moment, Xingyu narrowed his eyes and said, "The danger down there might not be as simple as the heaven-opening realm if so many kings died in such a short period of time." And Taiping suddenly said, "Did you guys notice that the origin source of the world is no longer dissipating? This means that the origin source of the world has been taken." "What do you mean?" Qiu Shouzang's face turned cold. "You mean that this disaster was caused by someone?" Qiu Shouzang's heart skipped a beat. He had heard from Tianhong that Ghost Blade had led the team down. Now, everyone else had died, but Ghost Blade's life tablet was still intact. Could it be that Ghost Blade had caused the disaster down there and obtained an unexpected resource? Devoured all the origin source of the world here. Qiu Shouzang's heart skipped a beat. It was possible. He knew Ghost Blade's ability. The 9 Deaths' indestructible body could allow him to die 9 times in a row within a certain period of time without dying. If Ghost Blade obtained all the origin source of the world, his potential and growth would probably be comparable to Bai Ranran's. Qiu Shouzang immediately said, "What? No matter how dangerous it is, can it stop the 3 of us? It's not an exaggeration to say that if the 3 of us join forces, we even have a chance of suppressing an expert at the edge of Dao proving. How can a mere awakening danger land stop us?" There was nothing wrong with what Qiu Shouzang said. At their level of strength, a single person could easily break through the starting ground. In a place like the chaotic vast sea, if it weren't for the fact that there was no beast king guarding it, who could resist a celestial transformation realm powerhouse? Duan Qingxi even dared to fight against a venerable emperor together with the silent master. It was not hard to imagine how terrifying their battle prowess would be at their level. Xingyu could kill more than 20 ordinary heaven-opening realm-tormented souls with a single strike. If it was Qiu Shouzang or An Taiping, they would probably be able to do the same. However, Xingyu already knew what was at the bottom of the abyss. It was a group of tormented souls, and he had even been dragged into a fight. Even if the 3 of them were to attack together, it would be a little unrealistic for them to defeat so many tormented souls. They were strong, but they were still within the limits of the heaven-opening stage. It could only be said that even in the face of so many tormented souls, it would not be easy for them to die. Of course, if there were people below to support him, and he had some other means, he might really be able to kill Qiu Shouzang and An Taiping. Thinking of this, Xingyu was a little excited. The strength of these 2 people was not weak at all. If they were really killed, there would only be benefits. At that time, whether it was the primitive city or the scavenger city, they could only admit defeat. Anyway, this recovery ground number 3 was explored by everyone together. However, Xingyu felt that the possibility of this was relatively small. After all, there were so many tormented souls down there. It was already good enough that they could fight their way out. Even with the help of Neza's unknown main body, it would at most be easier for them to escape. At this moment, Qiu Shouzang wanted them to enter this abyss together. Xingyu thought, since Han Fei asked me to lure them here, does he really have a way to take them down? But a few years ago, that guy seemed to be a little busy with his own affairs, right? While Xingyu was thinking, and Taiping said, although the world source here has disappeared, after all, hundreds of our sea-opening realm seedlings were killed here. We can't let this matter go easily. I think we can go in. Xingyu nodded. Since you think we can go in, then go in. At this time, Xingyu was more like an onlooker. He felt that in this trap, he was safe. What he was interested in now was how to deal with Nez's mysterious main body. Swish, 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 the three of them jumped into this abyss one after another. As the saying goes, the strong are fearless. Anyway, Qiu Shouzang and the others felt that in such a recovery ground, how could there be a creature that could threaten them? However, when they entered the world below, when the billowing murderous aura instantly filled their nerves, when the scorching air made them feel that something was wrong, it was already too late. This is the primordial battlefield. And Taiping's eyes were awe-inspiring. Feeling the rich murderous aura here, he immediately shouted in a low voice, "Not good, we've been ambushed. This place is more dangerous than I thought." This kind of rich murderous aura is a place that nurtures evil spirits, and it is very easy for them to give birth to tormented souls. After all, the primitive city was the first main city in the chaotic wasteland. They knew more secrets here. Therefore, when Taiping first arrived at this place, he had already guessed the real problem here. Sure enough, in their perception, the tormented souls here began to gather. When the first heaven-splitting realm tormented soul appeared, they knew why so many people had died one after another. After all, the trial takers were only at the Pioneer Sea realm. Against a heaven-splitting realm tormented soul, it would be a problem if they did not die. Xingyu pretended to be angry and shouted, "Qiu Shouzang, you fucking risked your life to come down here. Don't tell me you already knew the real situation here. Now that the cause of their deaths is obvious, if you want to stay here and fight the tormented souls, you can stay here." Xingyu mocked and looked like he was about to leave. However, more and more tormented souls appeared around them. Based on his perception, there were already dozens of them. At this rate, in a short while, this place would soon be filled with tormented souls. Qiu Shouzang's face darkened. What do I know? Scavenger City has the most people who have died. Xingyu said, so you want to drag us down with you? If you want to blame someone, blame the people of Scavenger City for being too greedy. If they weren't greedy, maybe the people of Wanderer City wouldn't have died. Qiu Shouzang yelled, Xingyu, are you trying to pick a fight now? Xingyu snorted. What? Do you think I'm afraid of you? Why don't you take a look at yourself? If Pan Litian came, he might be able to argue with me. You're just the second lord. Bastard. Stop arguing. Think about how to get out of here. There are more and more tormented souls here. They're all heaven-splitting realms. None of them are weak. Bang, bang, bang. As they spoke, they had already started fighting. There was no other way. At this time, they had no choice but to fight. When the tormented souls were everywhere, it would be difficult to fight. In an instant, the three powerhouses attacked one after another. The tormented souls that Han Fei found extremely difficult to deal with crumbled one after another in front of the three of them. They were not even qualified to resist. Half an hour later, when the three of them destroyed close to 500 tormented souls, they finally felt that it was difficult. They were powerhouses in the late stage of the star transformation realm, but they were also in the heaven-splitting realm and had their limits. There was no external force in this place, so they could only consume their own resource reserves. However, in Han Fei's case, although their combat power was still strong, their mental exhaustion could not be eliminated. Even though they had destroyed close to 500 tormented souls, there were still a large number of tormented souls chasing after them. Based on what they could see, there were still about 700 to 800 of them. Han Fei, who was sitting on the ancient blood fiend's neck, was also speechless. Was this the combat power of someone like Xingyu? They were simply animals. The three of them easily killed close to 500 tormented souls, and it seemed that they could continue fighting. Han Fei counted the number of tormented spirits he could still control. There were a total of 1,021 tormented spirits that he had accumulated over countless years. In such a short time, he had almost killed all of them. Who could withstand such an attack? Han Fei thought to himself, I can't go on like this. I can't let Xing Yu help me anymore. Immediately, Han Fei had an idea. Launch an all-out attack. Han Fei jumped down from the ancient blood fiend's neck. At this time, he still had to kill Qiu Shouzang and En Taiping. On the other side, Xing Yu roared, En Taiping, is this the right way you're leading? Where is the exit? Where the hell is the exit? En Taiping roared, the origin of the world here has been collected. Even the En family can't find it according to the traces left behind. At this time, you have no choice but to believe me. Qiu Shouzang was horrified. Oh no, thousands of tormented souls are surrounding us. Xing Yu cursed heartily, En Taiping, I don't believe you. You brought us into the nest of the tormented souls, didn't you? Xing Yu felt very good. It was a rare opportunity to curse at them. However, thousands of tormented souls had come. Wasn't that a bit too much? Where was Nez's original body? At this moment, Xing Yu suddenly heard Han Fei's voice transmission, attention. Stay away from En Taiping. The all-out attack has begun. Chapter 22-27. An all-out attack. Xing Yu's heart skipped a beat when he heard this, feeling a little incredulous. Wait, didn't you drag me along to fight the tormented spirits? Now you're telling me to launch an all-out attack. Looking at the surrounding tormented souls, Xing Yu was sure that this was the general attack that Han Fei had mentioned. Xing Yu's heart skipped a beat, and he shouted to Qiu Shouzang and En Taiping, split up, or else the tormented spirits will be endless. What if none of us can escape? Qiu Shouzang's heart skipped a beat. The primordial city had done a lot of research on the primordial graveyard. If they gave up on En Taiping and left on their own, what if none of them managed to escape? However, seeing that Xing Yu had already rushed out in one direction, his heart skipped a beat. Could this be a trap set by the primordial city? After all, En Taiping had been leading them for half a day, and they had killed countless tormented spirits along the way. Not only had they not found the exit, but the number of tormented spirits was also increasing. Qiu Shouzang immediately made up his mind and chose a path to rush out. When Xing Yu and Qiu Shouzang both left, even En Taiping himself was a little uncertain. Was he on the right path or the wrong one? Cicada, under such circumstances, En Taiping immediately spread his heavenly cicada wings, and the cicada's sound rang out. Through the sound, he could identify danger in the void. En Taiping was determined. The more dangerous it was, the more likely it was a way out. In his opinion, Xing Yu and Qiu Shouzang's departure was not wise. He was thinking that if he ran away, then Xing Yu and Qiu Shouzang, who could not find the way out, would probably be trapped alive in this primordial land. Under the siege of so many tormented spirits, they would not be able to withstand it. En Taiping felt that he might have accidentally killed two super powerhouses. If that was the case, this trial in Land of Revival number 3 would be a huge win. Experts like Xing Yu and Qiu Shouzang were not people who could be nurtured just because they wanted to. To become a powerhouse of this level, which one of them did not have countless opportunities and wandered on the edge of life and death countless times? A starting ground might not even be able to produce one such powerhouse, but this time, two of them might die. This was a huge credit. Although there were countless tormented souls blocking the way, they were still tormented souls. In terms of speed, they could not be compared to an expert like En Taiping. En Taiping unleashed his ultimate skills one after another. After killing dozens of tormented souls in a row, he set off in the direction of a safe place that he had determined to be safe. However, although there were obstacles along the way, the tormented souls could only exhaust him. It was impossible for them to stop him. After En Taiping killed close to 70 tormented souls, he felt that he was on the right path even though he felt that his spirit was lacking. Because he saw a crimson mist, which was an even denser baleful aura. Who? Two idiots. They gave up the chance to live for nothing. And Taiping grinned. Just as he was about to move forward, he suddenly saw a monstrous baleful chi condensing into a saber river slashing in his direction. Who? And Taiping was instantly horrified. This level of explosion and such terrifying power had almost triggered the baleful aura within 100,000 li radius. This kind of power could not have been caused by a single tormented soul. Roar! Divine Seal, Heaven Gate Formation. 8 layers of a strange formation appeared around in Taiping. Behind him, the triangular divine seal was rotating slowly and its power was exploding. Clang, 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 the endless saber river of baleful aura swept over the strange formation and produced clanging sounds. Every time the sound was heard, the terrifying power was as if a heaven-opening realm expert was attacking. It was extremely terrifying. Crack, 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 after 3 breaths, the first layer of the Heaven Gate formation began to break. And Taiping's vision darkened and then lit up. This time, he had already killed too many heaven-opening stage living beings, and his current battle prowess was less than 50%. Under such circumstances, he had to defend against such an exaggerated attack. It was extremely exhausting. He was terrified because it did not feel like he was fighting against an expert of the same realm. It felt like he was fighting against a force that was the enemy of the entire world. The 100,000 li of baleful aura was being manipulated by a force. One could imagine how powerful it was. Bang, 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 as time went by, although the power of the saber river was constantly weakening, the boundless baleful aura had never diminished. And Taiping took a deep breath. At the moment when the Heaven Gate formation was about to break, a circular sound wave came out of his mouth. Ah, the power of the sound wave was no less than that of the saber river, if not even stronger. Seeing this, Han Fei, who was secretly peeping, was shocked. Was he going to be killed when the ancient human took action in person and waited for him to be exhausted? Ah, the sound wave broke through the evil blood saber river, and then Taiping broke out of the encirclement. At the same time, he shouted, "Who's playing tricks? Come out." Han Fei's heart turned cold, and he sneered. "Come out, I'm not afraid of you." On An Taiping's route, a figure burning with baleful aura appeared. This ancient human's baleful aura was like blood, like a monster coming out of a blood pool. He roared, "In the past, it was you guys with wings who destroyed my world and slaughtered billions of my people. Today, I'm going to make you sink under the endless resentful souls." And Taiping was shocked. What the hell is this? Billions of people? Is this the strong master of the starting ground? No, this person has been integrated with the baleful aura and completely turned into a baleful body. His flesh and blood may be the manifestation of baleful aura. It's not necessarily a good thing to be entangled with this person. However, An Taiping twisted the space, but the distorted space was immediately torn apart by the ancient human. Although he was just a puppet now, he was still a puppet on the verge of the Tao-proving realm. When such a strong master launched an attack, there was no chance for him to escape. As soon as the two met, a fierce battle broke out. Because he was a puppet without consciousness, he was inevitably weaker in the battle. However, this person was really strong. He was originally a figure on the verge of the Tao-proving realm, or even at the same level as Xiao Honghuang. Even if his strength was greatly reduced, there was no reason for him to suddenly fall to the point where he couldn't even defeat An Taiping. Therefore, the two fought fiercely. An Taiping tried to leave the battle many times, but he was blocked by the boundless baleful aura. In the battle, Han Fei could see that An Taiping's state was getting worse and worse. First, he killed almost 300 tormented spirits in a row, and now he was attacked by this ancient human. It would be strange if he was in a good state of mind. But the next moment, Han Fei saw another kind of magical power. In the fierce battle, An Taiping's eyebrows lit up. However, it was not that his spiritual beast was about to come out, but a milky white bead was appearing. Star bead? Han Fei frowned. Has An Taiping been forced to use star beads? At that moment, a beam of terrifying energy that even Han Fei found incredible instantly penetrated the void within 100,000 kilometers. Even the ancient humans were pierced through 100,000 miles by this power, leaving a huge hole in their chests. But Taiping didn't seem to be in a good state either. This was the power directly burst out through the star bead, a kind of release of the power in the source sea. Han Fei thought that even if he could block the release of this power, he would almost be crippled. He felt that even if he turned back time, he might not be able to make it in time. Taiping was bleeding from his eyes, nose, mouth, panting heavily, and the triangular divine seal behind him rotated a lot faster. Han Fei snorted in his heart. No matter how strong you are, so what? This is the home field of the tormented spirits. Even if I have to kill you, I'll kill you today. However, the ancient human charged back again. All the baleful aura in the surrounding void was healing his injuries. Seeing this, Taiping was unwilling to fight back. While the ancient human hadn't returned, he immediately twisted the void and tried to escape. Han Fei wanted to intercept him, but he hadn't mastered this weird power of twisting the void yet. This was a kind of speed beyond the speed of light. Just when Han Fei was speechless, wondering if he would let Taiping escape, he saw the twisted void suddenly collapse. Taking a closer look, it was Star Plume that rushed out of the twisted void. Han Fei saw a big star emerge, almost covering Taiping. The terrifying power seemed to be even stronger than the beam of light that Taiping burst out just now. Puff! Crack, crack, crack. Caught off guard, most of Taiping's body exploded, and the raging energy pierced through him countless times. Even so, Taiping was able to react. Although his hands were almost turned into bones, he managed to block this blow. Star Plume! How dare you sneak attack me at this time? Don't you want to go out? Hiss, you, set me up. Star Plume attacked, and the ancient human swept up a long river of evil energy again and rushed over. When Taiping saw that the two of them didn't attack each other, he seemed to understand something. Cicada. Immediately, Taiping wanted to run back. As long as he could find Qiu Shouzang, he could survive. As the saying went, if the lips were gone, the teeth would be cold. Qiu Shouzang wouldn't just sit by and watch. Unfortunately, how could he survive a long river of evil energy and a spear made of flying stars? Immediately, the triangular divine seal behind Taiping burst out, and a terrifying power descended. That was the power of an emperor. Rumble, rumble, Taiping managed to cast the god's arrival technique and borrowed some of the power of an emperor. Blood spurted out crazily, but his broken body and injuries were recovering quickly. However, the moment he was hit away, he saw a horrible sword shadow suddenly burst out from behind him. However, Taiping quickly sensed that the power of this sword didn't seem to be that strong, so he held it with his hand. When Taiping was about to crush the Tao Convergence sword, the space here suddenly exploded, and the power reached the center of his eyebrows. At that moment, the void in front of Taiping's eyebrows moved, and a trace of the entrance to the Origin Sea appeared. A figure flashed and instantly rushed in. Even Star Plume was stunned by this scene. A voice transmission sounded in his mind, "Don't do anything. Leave this person to me." Chapter 22-28. In this primordial desolate land, Han Fei had already tried to enter the Origin Sea. The entrance to the Origin Sea seemed to be suppressed by the power of this world. However, this didn't mean that he really couldn't enter the Origin Sea. Taiping revealed his star bead, which was his biggest loophole. It would be fine if he didn't know that the star bead was connected to the Origin Sea, but Mo-Chi told him this personally, so he didn't think it was fake. Sure enough, although there was only a gap, it was enough for him to kill his way in. Xing Yu's eyes almost popped out at this moment. This is Neza's fucking body. Why did you run to Taiping's Origin Sea? Do you want to die? However, Xing Yu looked at the motionless bloody figure standing in the void next to him and couldn't help but be shocked. How did he control such a powerful bloody figure? Besides, so many bloody spirits seemed to be attacking him consciously. Are they also under his control? Xing Yu couldn't help but sigh. Why has no one ever told me that Neza has a body? Does the Lord of Silence know? The answer is that he definitely knows. Otherwise, Nez's body wouldn't have been exposed. Xingyu also felt that this person must be on his side. Although his body hadn't turned into a star yet, there was no doubt that this person could definitely become the 5th general of the City of Wanderers. This news made Xingyu quite excited. However, he really couldn't imagine how he could come out of Taiping's origin sea alive. No matter how weak he was still a powerhouse who had gone a long way after turning into a star. He was comparable to the 4 generals and the 10 lords. In Taiping's origin sea, the moment Han Fei rushed in, Taiping was dumbfounded. Bastard, how dare you enter my origin sea? Do you want to die? Taiping's first reaction was to use the power of the origin sea to kill Han Fei. He didn't waste his energy on Han Fei. He thought that there were still 2 strong enemies outside and he had to escape. However, when the terrifying power surged towards Han Fei, 3 small branches suddenly protruded from between Han Fei's eyebrows. Taiping was shocked to find that his terrifying power couldn't cause any harm to this person at all. Furthermore, all of the immortal qi and primal chaos qi in his source sea were gathering toward him. He was unable to control them at all. Who are you? Han Fei grinned. Me? I am, this guy, the shiniest one. Taiping was speechless. What do you mean by the brightest? You're even singing. Taiping was enraged. Even if I can't kill you, how can you survive my self-destruction? Han Fei loosened his shoulders and spread his hands. Go ahead. In the past, you could have exploded a little, but now. At this time, another 2 vines extended from between his eyebrows. Except for the one with fruits, the other 5 vines all came out. For a moment, Taiping felt that he was controlled by an invisible force. He wanted to activate the origin sea, but he found that there was no longer any power that would listen to him. Han Fei sneered. In the past, it was because he was weak that others could detonate the source sea under the absolute suppression of his strength. Now, he had already opened the heavens, and the little vine now had 6. From the moment he entered, the power of the origin sea belonged to the little vine, and yet he still wanted to self-detonate? What the hell was he thinking? Of course, it was not that Taiping couldn't self-detonate, but he could only detonate his body, and the origin sea would become an ownerless object. This was the first time that Han Fei had seen the origin sea of a celestial expert. At first glance, this was a fucking complete planet. Han Fei looked up at the sea of stars, and what was visible to the naked eye was that there were several large planets surrounding the sea. Han Fei could understand that this was to create a small galaxy, such as a solar system. It was a pity that although Taiping's small galaxy had several large planets around it, it lacked a star like the sun. After seeing the process of turning into a star and the evolution of the origin sea from the ancient humans, Han Fei was not so surprised by this. However, there were so many resources in Taiping's origin sea. Han Fei glanced around. If he collected these resources, even if most of them were useless, he could still develop at least 50,000 kilometers of origin sea, or even more. This was incomparable to the resources he exchanged for with more than 1 billion resources in the scavenger city. If he had to measure it in terms of resources, Han Fei could only say that there were at least tens of billions of energy crystals. And this was only a part of the resources that Han Fei could collect. Han Fei wanted to swallow Taiping's entire origin sea. He had tried this kind of thing long ago, but it didn't work. He could only swallow the resources that flowed on the surface of Taiping's origin sea. As for the deeper resources, even if he could excavate them, it would take a long time. Unfortunately, he didn't have the time to excavate resources now. There was still a big battle waiting for him outside, and Qiu Shouzang hadn't been killed yet. Outside. Hearing Han Fei's words, Xingyu didn't make a move and left Taiping to Han Fei. In fact, at first, Taiping still wanted to escape and was still conscious, but later, almost all his power was silent, and he seemed to be resisting something. He couldn't control Xingyu at all. But in any case, Xingyu knew that Taiping was dead. His power was getting weaker and weaker. Even if Han Fei didn't make a move, Xing Yu was confident that he could kill En Taiping. In the past, only one small vine attacked, but today, 5 small vines attacked together. About half an hour later, En Taiping couldn't hold on anymore. En Taiping's whole body twisted, which was a sign of self-destruction. The self-destruction of a late-stage star transformation cultivator was so powerful that Xing Yu, the ancients, and the human beings all retreated at the same time. Rumble, a self-destruction that swept across hundreds of thousands of kilometers, stirred the void here and even caused a violent earthquake in the surface world. Because it was not the great Tao of this world, En Taiping's death didn't cause the great Tao to roar and other astronomical changes. However, at the moment En Taiping died, the 2 emperors of the En family suddenly opened their eyes. En Balan suddenly got up from the throne, his expression solemn. Something big happened in the graveyard battlefield. Amidst the explosion, a figure seemed to walk out of the flames. The light from the flames made him shine with a golden light, making him look like a god. Xing Yu's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he heard Han Fei say, "Done. As for Qiu Shouzang, I want to lead him to the outside world to kill him." Xing Yu's eyelids twitched. If he goes to the outside world, will he still have a chance to kill him? Han Fei grinned. First, cripple him, and then throw him to the outside world. This is the place where the world recovers, and it will eventually recover in the future. Xing Yu shrugged. Why don't I know that Neza is an incarnation? Who are you? Han Fei said, you can ask the Lord of Silence or Duan Qingxi who I am. In short, we are not enemies. We are firm allies. Xing Yu asked, firm allies? A force outside the wasteland? Han Fei said, don't guess. You'll know when you go back. Here, En Taiping had died. It was impossible for there to be no movement in the primordial city. Although Han Fei could temporarily command these tormented souls because of this ancient human, the tormented souls were not as powerful as before. However, in addition to the number 3 land of recovery, the evil spirits were not of much use. After all, such a big thing had happened, it was impossible for the emperors not to come. People like En Taiping were equivalent to the 4 generals of the City of Wanderers, or the top 5 of the 10 lords of the City of Scavengers. There were only a few heavyweights like him in the entire chaotic wasteland. How could he not be taken seriously? When the emperors came, there would be less than 1,000 evil spirits left, which would not be enough. At this moment, all the evil spirits were chasing after Qiu Shouzang. Like En Taiping, although Qiu Shouzang had killed many evil spirits, there was a limit to his strength. Even if Qiu Shouzang's origin sea was abundant in resources, he was under great mental pressure. Although En Taiping and Qiu Shouzang were both stronger than Han Fei could reverse time. And with the help of the Emperor Sparrow, he could fish up Xing Yu to fight together. Overall, in terms of the number of kills, Han Fei might be able to kill more. But in a fight, if he used too many combat skills and soul power, his mental power would inevitably be exhausted. At this moment, Qiu Shouzang sensed the outbreak of a super battle, so he was coming to Han Fei. However, when Qiu Shouzang saw the ancients, he was shocked. Xing Yu did not show up. Han Fei hoped that he would catch the opponent off guard like before. Including Han Fei himself, he also hid. Anyway, he didn't have to do it himself. There were still many evil spirits anyway. Even if most of them had been killed, there were still 713 evil spirits left. In other words, since they parted ways just now, En Taiping and Qiu Shouzang had killed more than 300 evil spirits. At this moment, the ancients appeared and a great battle broke out. Qiu Shouzang had nowhere to run and was completely stalled by the ancients. And this time, Han Fei was not in a hurry to make a move. Because he could not accurately seize the opportunity to enter the opponent's origin sea through their star beads every time. Therefore, he had to cripple Qiu Shouzang and give him one last chance to escape. Therefore, all the remaining evil spirits joined the battle, more than 700 evil spirits and ancients. No matter how furious Qiu Shouzang was, even if he was hundreds of millions of miles away, they would not give him a chance to escape. In the dark, Han Fei and Xing Yu were watching the battle. Han Fei sighed and said, "People of your level are really good at fighting. I'm almost exhausted, but you still managed to kill 70 or 80 evil spirits. You're really fierce." Xing Yu was speechless. "You really don't mean to flatter yourself? People of our level are fierce, but you're not." Xing Yu nodded. "It should be about time. Don't panic. Let's push him a little more. It won't be too late to burn tens of thousands of years of his lifespan." Before this, Qiu Shouzang had already burned 50,000 to 60,000 years of his lifespan, which made Han Fei quite sigh. After a while, Qiu Shouzang was knocked away by the blood fiend. He immediately burned his lifespan again and attacked with the power of the star bead, knocking away the blood fiend's body and killing 17 evil spirits. At this time, Xing Yu said, "It's about time. I know you still want to enter his origin sea. If we wait any longer, when the venerable emperor of the Yin family arrives, it will be difficult to continue the show." Han Fei nodded slightly. Okay. Chapter 22-29. Qiu Shouzang had never thought that one day he would be exhausted to death by the human wave tactic. If it weren't for the ancient human Shueisha, he was confident that he could still hold on and run away. There might even be a chance to get out. However, as soon as the ancient human Shueisha entered the battlefield, he was completely at a disadvantage. This was the untainted land, a world full of evil qi. This world was full of evil qi. When Shueisha fought with him, Shueisha had the geographical advantage. He had endless replenishment. But not only did he not have any replenishment, his mental energy was also declining. If this dragged on for a long time, wouldn't he be exhausted to death? At this moment, Qiu Shouzang knew that he could not break out of the encirclement of the tormented spirits and Shueisha. In this situation, he knew that there was nothing he could do. Unless a sovereign came in person, no one could save him. However, being trapped here, there was no way to summon a sovereign unless he died and the life tablet was broken. But Qiu Shouzang was not willing to give up. He had never thought that he would die in such a small place. Roar! Qiu Shouzang used his natal star orb to pour out a terrifying attack again and opened up a path. He was going to struggle one last time. In a moment, Qiu Shouzang had crossed hundreds of millions of miles. Although the Shueisha and a large number of tormented spirits were chasing after him, they were still much slower than him. Suddenly, Qiu Shouzang's heart skipped a beat. He had found a strange place. There was a big cocoon where living creatures were being nurtured. Although the world's origin had been taken away, with Qiu Shouzang's rich experience, how could he not recognize this place? Qiu Shouzang laughed wildly. Ha ha ha. Heaven never bars one's way. In the blink of an eye, Qiu Shouzang arrived at this place. He did not hesitate at all. He directly released a large amount of chaotic energy and even celestial qi. This was similar to using the chaotic energy to enter the primitive graveyard. But this place might be slightly different. The exit might be more obscure. Even Qiu Shouzang was looking for a weak spot in the vast amount of chaotic energy. In the end, he fixed his eyes on a withered wood-like demonic plant. This demonic plant was supposed to be an expert nurtured by the world's origin. But obviously, it had not been born successfully. Although he had failed to successfully nurture it, he seemed to have opened up an opportunity to connect with the outside world. Qiu Shouzang made use of this to pierce through the void with a single finger. However, just as half of Qiu Shouzang's body entered the void, a hidden and terrifying power suddenly burst forth from not far away and bombarded his body. Xing Yu? Qiu Shouzang roared in disbelief. He didn't know when Xing Yu had appeared here, but his body's strength and mental strength had been greatly depleted. Now, he had to face Xing Yu's all-out attack. He was unable to retaliate. In fact, he had to rush out of the passageway. Otherwise, if he were to be left behind, he would have no chance of survival against an expert like Xing Yu. Roar! Chiu Shotsang used almost all of his strength to maintain the passageway and quickly passed through. The moment Chiu Shotsang appeared in the outside world, he was so moved that he almost cried. Finally, he saw a way out. As expected, the heavens still cared for him. However, he originally thought that without his power to control it, the passageway would collapse. However, he was wrong. There was still a powerhouse like Xingyu behind him. It would not be difficult for him to forcibly surround this passageway. Swish, swish, swish! Right behind Xingyu, streaks of light and shadows leaped out of the passageway one after another. Taking a closer look, he saw Xingyu, Shui Sha, and a masked man. In a flash, as soon as Xingyu appeared, he struck out with a huge star. On the other side, Shui Sha launched an attack. Boundless evil qi condensed into a long river of evil qi. Not to be outdone, the masked man burst out a weird sword aura that was intertwined with immortal spiritual qi and evil qi. Xingyu, you tricked me! Chiu Shotsang roared. He was so weak that he didn't even have 30% of his combat power. How could he face the attacks of the three powerhouses? Only the guy wearing the mask was slightly weaker. Rumble, rumble! Chiu Shotsang's body was mutilated and his soul was weak. Pucci, a crack was squeezed out of the void. Chiu Shotsang was shocked. Wasn't that the entrance to his origin sea? Han Fei drilled in and crazily devoured the energy stored in Chiu Shotsang's origin sea, just like how he absorbed in Taiping. In the outside world, Xingyu blocked this place. Although in Taiping and Chiu Shotsang were both dead, the follow-up events of the number 3 Land of Revival might be very serious. However, he had gotten rid of 2 powerful enemies after all. Who cared what would happen next? He just had to deal with it. Bam! The void was broken, and Han Fei drilled out of Chiu Shotsang's origin sea. When Han Fei raised his hand, Chiu Shotsang seemed to be struggling. Xingyu's pupils constricted slightly. Is he being controlled? Han Fei was also very excited. He thought he couldn't control Chiu Shotsang. After all, Chiu Shotsang was too strong. However, Chiu Shotsang was too weak at this moment. His origin sea was almost emptied, and he was chased by the evil spirits and ambushed. He was too weak to resist. At this moment, in the void passage, hundreds of evil spirits appeared in a row. Han Fei said, "Keep acting until the end." Han Fei used the great path of time on Chiu Shotsang and disturbed the time at this moment. Xingyu was speechless when she saw Han Fei's series of tricks. This man had so many tricks and was so cunning. He was definitely an extremely dangerous person. Hum in the know. 3 Land of Revival, Neza, and Tufu, and Bai Ranran were fighting fiercely. Neza was stalling for time. And Tufu thought that Neza was determined to kill Bai Ranran today because he felt that Neza was very violent. And Tufu didn't understand why he didn't cooperate. In fact, it would be a great achievement if he killed either one of them. However, after fighting for a long time, the 3 of them were shocked to find that they couldn't do anything to each other. At this moment, they found that the entire number 3 Land of Revival began to shake as if something big had happened. From afar, they saw a scene that made their hearts tremble. In the eyes of Neza, Bai Ranran, and Ntufu, they saw countless skeletons and a human-shaped blood demon chasing Chiu Shotsang and Xingyu. Besides, it seemed that the 2 of them were heavily injured. In particular, half of Xingyu's body was gone, and there was a big hole in Chiu Shotsang's chest and abdomen. Hiss! At that moment, the 3 of them were all shocked. Only Neza's clone pretended to be shocked. At that moment, they saw the blood fiend cultivator in front of them turn his head and look in their direction. Following that, 3 tormented souls left the group and charged toward Neza's clone. Shoot! Oh no! Neza and Ntufu both cried out in shock. At this moment, the battle between them was already meaningless. Almost at the same time, the 3 of them took out teleportation jade slips and teleported back. Hum, because there was still a long distance from the place where they were fighting to the exit. They could reach the heaven opening stage quickly, but not the Pioneer Sea stage. The three of them appeared at the exit of the number 3 Land of Revival almost at the same time. At this moment, there was no one here, so the three of them could only open the passage with the chaotic energy. As soon as the passage was opened, a figure suddenly walked out of the void. Yi Fenglu. Bai Ranran was slightly surprised. She didn't expect that Yi Fenglu was still in the number 3 Land of Revival. Neza's doppelganger and Ntufu stepped into the tunnel before Bai Ranran did when they saw that there were more people coming. Han Fei, however, said to Bai Ranran, something happened. A large group of heaven opening stage cultivators seems to be chasing the second lord. Bai Ranran thought, Yi Fenglu saw that too. It seems that they came too fast. Bai Ranran said, let's go. Let's get out of here first. Outside. As soon as Neza went out, he shouted, something happened inside. Lord Xingyu is being chased. Huh? What? What's going on? For a moment, not only Duan Qingxi was shocked, but the experts of the two neighboring families also showed up. On the other side, Ntufu shouted, where is Lord Taiping? Where is Lord Taiping? An expert of the An family immediately stepped out of the void and shouted in a low voice, Tufu, what happened? Ntufu said, ghost spirits. There are thousands of heaven opening stage ghost spirits. What? In the scavenger city, the expert guarding the graveyard battlefield changed his expression drastically. At this moment, he saw Bai Ranran and Yi Fenglu come out. Bai Dandan said the first thing after she came out, Lord Purple Cloud, hurry up and save them. The second lord is being chased. Hiss, in the blink of an eye, Duan Qingxi, Purple Cloud, and the expert of the An family immediately entered the number 3 Land of Revival. Cicada, about half an hour after they entered the number 3 Land of Revival, cicadas chirped in the void, and a horrible pressure descended. It was none other than Nbalan. Before Ntufu and the others had time to talk to Nbalan tore open the entrance to the number 3 Land of Revival. However, as soon as the entrance was opened, Duan Qingxi carried the heavily injured Xingyu and dashed out. And Purple Cloud didn't rush out until several minutes later with the badly wounded Qiu Shouzang. Behind them was the expert of the An family, but An Taiping was nowhere to be seen. Behind the An family powerhouse, a blood fiend was leading 700 tormented souls, chasing after them like a madman. Humph! You're courting death. Nbalan made a move and pressed his palm down. The void within 100,000 miles was compressed, and hundreds of ghost spirits were collapsing and exploding. And the leader of the blood demons roared and shouted at Nbalan, it's you who destroyed my world. I will come back for revenge. The blood demon, with the power of an emperor, grabbed the long river of evil intent and whipped it at Nbalan. Everyone was shocked. That was a fucking emperor. You're courting death. Nbalan pointed a finger at the world, and the void within 100,000 miles collapsed. The entrance to the number 3 Land of Revival completely collapsed, directly burying more than 700 ghost spirits. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Is this the power of an emperor? Isn't he a bit too strong? The power of a finger could collapse the void within 100,000 miles. Is he still human? But at this moment, Qiu Shouzang, who was next to Purple Cloud, suddenly put his hand on Purple Cloud. At that moment, Purple Cloud felt a fatal crisis. Shouzang, Purple Cloud wanted to run, but Qiu Shouzang stopped him and tried to stop him with a life-risking strike. Bam, bam, bam at the same time, in the collapsed void, more than 700 ghost spirits, led by Blood Demon, exploded together. The three forces were all shocked. For a moment, the void within 1,000,000 miles exploded and was annihilated. Purple Cloud, who was on the scavenger city's side, reached out to protect Han Fei and Bai Ranran, grabbed them, and fled to the rear. When they looked back, the space within 1,000,000 miles was completely annihilated. Only one sentence was left in the void. A forest horse voice growled, I will come back eventually. While everyone was confused, shocked, and horrified. Only Xingyu's eyelids were twitching wildly. That was because he knew that the fallen Xuesha was merely a fake. But was Purple Cloud tricked? Chapter 22:30. Qiu Shouzang attacked in front of everyone, trying to drag Zi Xiao, the commander-in-chief of the graveyard battlefield, down with him. Unfortunately, he still underestimated the strength of a master of this level. Although Zi Xiao was almost annihilated by the explosion, he still saved a hand. It was hard to imagine that a hand forcibly ripped open the endless void that was about to heal, ran out, and reconstructed its body. It wasn't until Balan arrived in person that everyone learned that in Taiping, the top heaven opening stage master of the primitive city, also died in the number 3 revival land. It could be said that this time, on the surface, the 3 major forces all suffered heavy losses. And the strength of Xingyu was also adjusted by the primitive city and the scavenger city. After all, when Balan arrived, there were still hundreds of tormented spirits. Even with the strength of an emperor suppressing it, it caused the void within 1,000,000 miles to collapse. The terrifying power directly annihilated the area within 1,000,000 miles of the number 3 revival land. No one knew how long this terrifying cave would last here. The ice above the sea was frozen all the time, as if trying to repair this area of 1,000,000 miles of annihilation. But in this area, the power of the tormented spirit's self-detonation was destroying the ice in this place all the time. Not long after Balan arrived, the Silent Master and the Emperor of 10,000 Scales arrived one after another. The 3 emperors tore open this land of annihilation and entered the number 3 revival land, but soon came out. After coming out, they directly warned everyone to list this place as a forbidden land. They all knew that the world origin of the number 3 revival land had been taken away. Naturally, they also found the primitive antiquity land and found a large number of battle traces there. According to their estimation, it seemed reasonable for thousands of tormented spirits and a blood fiend whose strength might have reached the edge of the Tao-proving realm to cause such a huge loss. Leaders wouldn't do everything by themselves, so they weren't omnipotent. Without the ability to reverse time, they couldn't see what really happened here. Moreover, Han Fei deliberately changed the time that Qiu Shouzang experienced, blurring that time, so even if the Emperor of 10,000 Scales found Mo Qi, it would be useless. However, this time, Land of Revival number 3 had suffered too great a loss. Everything seemed like a huge trap. This surprised both Primordial City and Scavenger City. After that, everyone who entered Land of Revival number 3 for the trial would have to undergo a certain amount of investigation and questioning. This is not. Purple Cloud, the highest commander of the scavengers of the primitive cemetery, was meeting Han Fei at this moment. Zi Xiao said, "You were among the last batch to return, and you appeared almost at the same time as Bai Ranran. Tell me, why didn't I summon you back the first time?" "Your Excellency, when I was summoned for the first time, I was at the critical moment of refining the world origin crystal. But even so, I still quickly completed the last part of the refinement and quickly came out of the hidden secret realm. However, as soon as I came out, I saw the scene of Lord Guardian Sang being chased. At that time, there was even a heaven opening stage skeleton coming towards me. So, I decisively crushed the teleportation jade slip." Zi Xiao said, "What a coincidence. How long would it take to refine the world origin crystal?" "On that day, at that time, you were refining it?" "My lord, it doesn't take long to refine one world origin crystal, but I've refined more than one." "Oh." Zi Xiao said with great interest, "Then how many have you refined?" Han Fei casually said, "I've refined 207 in a row." "How many?" Zi Xiao was a little speechless when she heard this number. "Are you fucking kidding me? Wait, where did you get so many world origin crystals?" Han Fei said, "In the primitive city, I killed 9 people. In the city of wanderers, I killed 7 people, including one with wings. In the third land of revival, I killed 53 sea opening stage creatures. In total, I obtained 207 world origin crystals. That shouldn't be too many, right?" Zi Xiao narrowed her eyes slightly. If what Yi Fenglu said was true, then this guy's strength seemed to have been greatly underestimated. Zi Xiao said, "But most of the world origin crystals are in other people's origin sea. How did you get them? Will those people surrender? Han Fei was silent for a while, as if he had something to say. Zixiao immediately said, "Don't worry. No one who shouldn't know about this will know." Han Fei immediately said, "I have an inherited technique that can allow me to enter the origin sea of the dead. Of course, this ability has its limitations. It consumes a lot of my spiritual power. Every time I use it, my spirit will weaken. So, in this trial, I mainly hunt native creatures. Only when my mental state is at its peak will I hunt enemies." Hearing this, Zixiao was tempted. He didn't think that Han Fei was deceiving him, because his soul was always paying attention to Han Fei. If Han Fei's soul state was slightly abnormal, he would notice it. A mere peak stage sea opening stage couldn't escape his eyes at all. Therefore, Han Fei's frank statement made him think that he had confirmed the truth of the matter. The only thing that surprised Zixiao was that it was the first time he had heard of such an inherited technique. It was interesting that a peak stage sea opening stage cultivator could enter other people's origin sea. Generally speaking, the existence of a origin sea was the foundation of a cultivator. If they didn't want to, others couldn't enter and spy on their origin sea. Zixiao asked, "Who have you encountered this time?" Han Fei replied, "Neza, Long Yu, Li Canli, GMO." Han Fei randomly named a group of people. Most of these people had died, except for Neza. You can check it if you have the ability. Anyway, Neza is my clone. Zixiao asked, "You encountered Neza and ran away?" Han Fei replied, "I was injured, so I hid and recuperated for more than 2 months." Zixiao nodded slightly. "Okay. Go ahead. During this period of time, in the next month, you are not allowed to wander around in the camp. When I allow you to leave, you can return to the scavenger city. The city of wanderers. Somewhere in the secret realm, in Star Jade's origin sea, 90 heavenly talents of the city of wanderers were released. In addition, there were 309 sea beasts in the sea opening stage, of which 48 had reached the peak stage. And in addition, there were also 4 sea demons in the heaven opening stage. At this moment, most of the sea demons who had left the number 3 revival land were dumbfounded. Those in the sea opening stage didn't dare to move. The clam girl and the emperor jellyfish looked at Star Jade and then at the surrounding environment, not knowing where they were. However, they knew how terrifying the person in front of them was. At the same realm, he could accommodate the 4 of them, but in Star Jade's origin sea, they felt an extremely heavy pressure, even though Star Jade had tried his best not to pressure them. At this moment, next to Star Jade, Duan Qingxi clicked her tongue and said, "You brought back a lot of people. So profitable this time." The corner of Star Jade's mouth trembled. "Duan Qingxi, don't you have anything to explain to me? Good heavens, didn't you tell me that our city of wanderers hides the 5th great general?" Duan Qingxi looked at Star Jade strangely. "Who said he is the 5th great general?" Star Jade replied, "Isn't he? Although he hasn't turned into a star yet, his strength is probably no different from that. This time, he has made a great contribution." Duan Qingxi said lightly, "Why do you think so highly of him?" Star Jade felt that something was wrong. "What do you mean?" Duan Qingxi snorted softly. "He is not one of us." Star Jade looked confused. He was the one who recruited Neza into the Heaven Chosen team. Suddenly, Star Jade's heart shook. "Who is he?" Duan Qingxi said, "An arrogant lunatic." "Okay, let's not talk about this. Anyway, the gift he gave us this time is a bit big. I guess we have to return some gifts." "Return gifts?" Star Jade's eyes widened. "What? In this chaotic wasteland, apart from the 3 major forces, is there a 4th major force?" At this moment, the clam girl said, "This. Senior, may I ask, where is this place? Is the agreement between Brother Ren and us still valid?" Star Jade, "Brother Ren?" Clam girl, "It's Ren Tianfei." Star Jade rubbed his big bald head. Yes, but I need to tell you something about our Wanderer City." Let this lady Duan Xingxi do it for you." After saying that, Xingyu rubbed his head and left. He wanted to find the silent ruler to clarify things. He was still mumbling, "What kind of nonsense is this?" After the war, Han Fei still watched the three forces fight on the graveyard battlefield as usual. Recently, he had too many things to digest. In the Origin Sea, a huge amount of resources were melting rapidly, and the Origin Sea was being developed. He was also considering that he needed time now. First of all, he saw a speed that surpassed the limit of speed this time. In the last moment, if it weren't for Star Jade, he couldn't have come back so fast. He had to figure out how to surpass the limit of speed. Secondly, he could now see through the natal marks of many people. He didn't know if it was because his spiritual power had exceeded 5 million, but he could see through these Pioneer Sea Realm cultivators at a glance. He could see through them without any reason. Also, he knew that he was far from invincible. In the same realm, 200 or 300 ghost spirits could surround him. Even if he could reverse time, he might not be able to resist them. Fortunately, he had entered Origin Restoration again, so he should be able to fight better than before. Now, he was desperately short of time. Because the Emperor Sparrow swallowed too much evil chi and evil beads, it chose to fall into a deep sleep. When it woke up, it would be almost time to open the sky. There was still a huge gap between his soul power and his physical body, which he needed to make up for. He had obtained so many resources, so it would be best if he could enter Origin Restoration again. He found that the state of Origin Restoration could repair the gap between his soul and his physical body. Although it couldn't be completely repaired, he would be stronger and his foundation would be more solid after returning to Origin Restoration. Han Fei thought of something. This time, I'll need 2 or 3 years. I have to find an excuse. While Han Fei was thinking about this, he saw Bai Ranran and Tian Hong walking over. Han Fei turned around and asked indifferently, "What's up?" Bai Ranran asked, "I heard that you have gained a lot this time and will make great progress in the future." Seeing Han Fei frown, Bai Ranran said, "I belong to the group of people who should know. In this trial, you can join my team and stay by my side." Han Fei thought to himself, "I don't want to stay by your side." However, Han Fei thought of something and asked, "What about the benefits?" Bai Ranran said, "You are qualified to leave the chaotic wasteland with me and go to the Divine Capital Dynasty to meet the heavenly talents of the Sea Realm." Han Fei pretended to be shocked and said after a moment of silence, "I need to cultivate in seclusion now." Bai Ranran said, "You have 5 years, only 5 years." Chapter 2231. 2 years later. In a remote place in the Scavenger Sea area, Han Fei had been cultivating here for 2 years. During this period of time, no one had followed him, and nothing out of the ordinary had happened. It seemed that they were quite confident in him. He didn't know if it was because Zhao Honghuang had given him a blood-devouring pill. But Han Fei didn't dare to be careless. In the past 2 years, he was really in seclusion to balance the gap between his soul power and his physique. For now, the effect was mediocre. Although the two had transformed a lot, too much transformation would also cause his foundation to be unstable. Therefore, in the past 2 years, Han Fei mainly focused on consolidating his foundation and didn't have time to temper his body and explore his many questions about the heaven-opening state. On this day, Han Fei was wondering whether to return to the Origin Sea again, because the large number of resources he obtained from Taiping and Qiu Shotsang that could be used to open up the Origin Sea had been used up. At present, Han Fei's Origin Sea suddenly opened up from 200,000 kilometers to 270,000 kilometers. This was the benefit of countless resources for a late-stage celestial transformation powerhouse. After all, Han Fei won 1,000 consecutive victories in the arena of the Scavenger City and obtained countless energy crystals, but the resources he got were not enough to open up a 10,000-kilometer Origin Sea. And the resources possessed by Taiping and Qiu Shotsang helped him open up a 70,000-kilometer Origin Sea at once. However, this situation couldn't be replicated, and he couldn't casually kill a powerhouse of this level. If it weren't for the siege of thousands of heaven-opening state ghost spirits, if it weren't for the help of the ancient blood devils, if it weren't for the help of the star jade, if it weren't for the special environment of the primitive ancient land, it would have been impossible for him to kill these two people. This also fully showed that there was still a big gap between him and the real powerhouses of the heaven-opening state. And the urgent task to make up for this gap was to open up the Origin Sea. As for how much to open up, Han Fei planned to ask eldest senior brother and the others this time. As for the remaining resources, a large number of materials, treasures, and so on, there was no way to convert them into energy to open up the Origin Sea. Of course, he would make the best use of them. Some mineral deposits, earth veins, spiritual liquids, and so on were slowly integrated into his Origin Sea. He wanted to open up the Origin Sea again, but he felt that it was not worth it for such a small amount of resources. Suddenly, Han Fei felt that the mark of the Void Temple in the depths of his sea of consciousness was triggered. Immediately, Han Fei knew that a new gathering had begun. Because of the limited conditions, Han Fei didn't attend many small gatherings. This time, it was a small gathering. However, in Han Fei's opinion, a small party was almost the same as a centennial party. Small gatherings weren't full. Everyone had things to do, didn't want to come, and didn't have any news to share. In fact, there was no need for them to come. Han Fei patiently rearranged the surroundings and concealed the area. Then, he touched the mark in his mind and opened the Void Gate. Void Mountain. Han Fei now called this place the Void Mountain for convenience. Han Fei was a little late. As soon as he entered the Void Mountain, he looked around and smiled at his senior brothers and senior sisters. Greetings, eldest senior brother Undead, senior brother Azure Dragon, senior sister Green Lotus, senior sister Red Lotus, senior sister Fengyu. This time, only a few people had come. The others were not here. To Han Fei's surprise, Phoenix Feather 11 came. More than 300 years ago, she said she was going to participate in a trial or something, and then she never appeared again. He didn't expect that she would come to this small gathering. After everyone responded, Phoenix Feather 11 said, "Little junior brother, I haven't seen you for 300 years. Do you miss me? Are you still in that shabby place?" Han Fei grinned. "I haven't been in that place for a long time." Phoenix Feather curled her lips. "It's only been more than 300 years. You make it sound like it's been a long time." Han Fei paused. They generally didn't say where they came from or where they were, so Han Fei didn't intend to tell them. The things in the chaotic wasteland might come to an end for the time being. Everything depended on his return from the Divine Capital Dynasty. Azure Dragon asked, 11, are you done with your business?" Phoenix Feather said, "It should have been over long ago, but the East Sea Divine Land is going to hold a super competition every 100,000 years. It looks so interesting. I'm going to join in the fun." Han Fei's heart did a flip. "You're going too?" Immediately, everyone looked at Han Fei. "So, you're going too?" Feng Yu exclaimed, "Little junior brother, you're going too?" "Wait, little junior brother, it hasn't been long since you opened the sky, right? You haven't turned into a star yet. Won't it be dangerous for you to participate in this competition?" Han Fei immediately said with a smile, "Anyway, I'll go first. Besides, my strength is not that bad. If I'm too weak, I'll be a disgrace to the Void Temple." Senior brother Azure Dragon said, "Little junior brother, no matter what, you must be careful." "Thank you for your reminder, senior brother Azure Dragon, but I'm in a special situation now. I'm afraid I have to go on this trip." "Oh." Just when Feng Yu was about to say something, eldest senior brother suddenly said, "Okay, if 11 has anything to say it after the class." Little junior brother's aura is not too stable, and his foundation is slightly disordered. You'd better listen to the class first. Hearing this, everyone seemed to understand that the so-called unstable aura was probably because he improved too fast. The reason why everyone felt that the disciples of the Void Sacred Hall had improved too quickly was because they felt that the disciples of the Void Sacred Hall had improved too quickly. There was no other possibility. In particular, since little junior brother could enter the Void Temple, his foundation couldn't be weak. Thinking that Han Fei was going to participate in the 10,000-year competition of the East Sea Divine Continent, his temporarily unstable aura must be caused by his rapid growth. And the reason why eldest senior brother wanted to lecture first was that his lecture contained the truth of heaven and earth and the aura of the Great Way, which could help Han Fei digest this kind of unstable aura. Feng Yu hurriedly responded, "Yes, eldest senior brother." Han Fei and the others immediately sat cross-legged. After a while, they heard eldest senior brother's lecture slowly. However, Han Fei suddenly discovered one thing, that was, when eldest senior brother lectured before, he always started with the Great Way. But this time, he started with the Heavenly Way. On the contrary, as soon as he said the Heavenly Way, Han Fei felt a little confused and wanted to sleep. Oh, no, he wanted to meditate. Vaguely, Han Fei seemed to hear a few words. What is the Heavenly Way? It is a kind of mighty power, the power contained in heaven and earth. The Heavenly Way contains all the Tao's in heaven and earth. If you want to use the Heavenly Way, you must borrow the Tao in heaven and earth that suits you. Although Han Fei felt a little confused, his chest was heaving up and down, although he didn't realize it. But somehow, he seemed to have understood some truth of the Great Way. Han Fei's origin sea was faintly touched. While the origin sea was giving birth to the Great Tao, there seemed to be power seeping into it from the star sea, which made Han Fei feel extremely comfortable. It was as if someone was giving him a massage after a long time of exhaustion. Unfortunately, Han Fei felt that this wonderful feeling only lasted for a while before it disappeared. Suddenly, Han Fei heard eldest senior brother's voice in his ears, "Okay, that's all for today's lesson. Little junior brother, how do you feel?" Han Fei immediately checked his personal information, only to see the information in front of his eyes. Owner Han Fei, level greater than 101, sky opening, see 10,000 family tree, 200016, chaotic energy 1. 37 million spiritual power, 5461258, perception range 6. 5 million kilometers power, 4582429 waves, first spiritual heritage, primordial vein, second spiritual heritage, a vein of eternal darkness, first spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 96, second spiritual beast, emperor sparrow, level 99, main art, time fishing, level 8 of void fishing, emperor level, divine quality, huh? All of a sudden, Han Fei released his soul power, and his strength was enhanced again. In the past 2 years of cultivation, he had been trying to balance the gap between his soul and strength. Although he could transform his soul and strength every day. However, just like eldest senior brother, he knew that his aura was unstable the moment he saw him. The rapid transformation came with a price, and he needed time to consolidate this transformation. After all, the soul and the body were two completely different powers. Otherwise, his soul and strength would have been balanced a long time ago. Han Fei was surprised because he knew that he would attend the party today, so he paid attention to the information of his soul power and strength when he came out of seclusion in advance. At that time, his soul power was 5.52 million, and his strength was 4.51 million. However, after listening to eldest senior brother's lesson, the two changed. Also, Han Fei sensed that he seemed to have a better control over his power than before. Phew! At least I've saved 100 years of hard cultivation. Han Fei felt that if his foundation was unstable before, it had been stabilized after one lesson. Of course, there was still a long way to go before it was solid. Han Fei knew that eldest senior brother was helping him consolidate his strength a little. As for the future, he still had to rely on himself. Han Fei immediately responded, "Thank you, eldest senior brother. I feel much better. Now it's time to consolidate my foundation." "Okay. That's great." Eldest senior brother didn't talk much, so he asked, "Is there anything you want to discuss?" Han Fei's heart did a flip. He had a lot of questions now, so he had to take this opportunity to ask. Others couldn't even think of such an opportunity. How could he not cherish it? Han Fei said, "Eldest senior brother, I have a question." Eldest senior brother glanced at Han Fei kindly and then nodded. Han Fei immediately said, "Eldest senior brother, I want to know whether the soul and the body must be balanced in order to have a solid foundation." Huh? Before eldest senior brother spoke, senior brother Azure Dragon said, "Little junior brother, was your foundation unstable because of this question?" Chapter 2232. Facing senior brother Azure Dragon's question, Han Fei nodded slightly. It should be. Maybe it's the ownerless soul. As a matter of fact, Feng Yu immediately interrupted, "Aya. As the saying goes, there's no free lunch in the sky. Ownerless souls are good, but you can't eat them randomly. Look, fortunately, you discovered it early, otherwise it will be troublesome in the future." Han Fei thought, "I know, but I can't tell you that I can forcibly balance the relationship between the two, can I?" Feng Yu answered, "Let me answer this question for you, little junior brother." Eldest senior brother nodded slightly with a gentle expression. Feng Yu, the talkative Feng Yu, immediately said, "Your guess is actually quite accurate. It's actually very difficult to achieve an absolute balance between the soul and the body, so generally, there won't be an absolute balance. At least there's a relative balance. If the two are almost balanced, your foundation will be considered solid." Han Fei nodded slightly. Sure enough, when the two reached a balance, it could be considered as a real solid foundation. It turned out that his foundation had never been solid before. Feng Yu continued, "However, there are some special cases. Some people focus on cultivating their soul, so that their soul can leave their body. The strength of their soul is far stronger than that of their body, and the power that erupts from their soul can easily destroy others' souls. There are also some people who walk on the extreme path of body refinement. These people eventually give up their soul and replace it with their will. They walk on the ultimate path of body refinement." Hearing this, Han Fei couldn't help but frown. He had thought about this before. However, he didn't know that the limit of body refinement was to replace the soul with the will. He had always thought that if you didn't have a soul, others could easily kill you with the power of their soul. In contrast, those who only cultivated their soul had a weak body. What could you do when others pierced through your body? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, then these two people who walk on the extreme path, won't they always be weak in one aspect? Feng Yu yelled, "That's not right. Both of them are very powerful. Don't think that just because you want to walk on the extreme path, you can really walk to the extreme path. This requires talent. Only those who are talented can do this. Moreover, when one's soul was cultivated to the extreme, it was said that it could exist independently of the physical body. To them, creating a physical body was simply too easy. They just needed to pinch it casually, and a physical body would appear. And when the physical body is cultivated to the extreme, it can replace the soul with the will. The physical body can't be destroyed, and the soul is immune to attacks. As long as the will exists, even if the physical body is destroyed, they can find the physical body. Let me ask you, is it scary or not?" Han Fei frowned. "Is he so strong?" Han Fei couldn't help but say, "Then aren't those who pursue balance and have a solid foundation weak compared to these two?" Feng Yu, in theory, this type is indeed incomparable to those two types. However, there are also benefits to this. That is, it is not easy to prove one's Tao by taking the extreme path, but this kind of pursuit of balance between the two is relatively easy to prove one's Tao. Han Fei curled his lips. What about fighting? The moment those two kinds of experts arrive, they'll be able to wipe us out with a flip of their hands. Feng Yu scratched her head, that doesn't seem right either. I have met someone who has refined his soul to the extreme. Although his soul is strong, when fighting with him, I can also resist. Han Fei was speechless. Senior sister Feng Yu, are you sure you really understand it thoroughly? Feng Yu blushed and was so anxious that she counted her fingers. Well, by the way, I borrowed the power of the way of heaven. Yes, the power of the way of heaven. Ha ha ha. Senior sister Red Lotus chuckled. Senior brother Azure Dragon, you'd better teach both of them. 11 knows how to use it, but he hasn't understood it thoroughly yet. Senior brother Azure Dragon glanced at Feng Yu. Last time, I wanted to teach you, but you said you understood it. Is that it? If you don't listen carefully, how can you achieve extraordinary achievements? Listen carefully this time. Okay, Feng Yi felt that she was a little messed up. The problem was with the heavenly Tao. I must have been diverted by some topic previously and forgot to listen. Senior brother Azure Dragon said, little junior brother, the balance between the physical body and the soul, in addition to representing a solid foundation, also represents another thing. What? Senior brother Azure Dragon said, the degree of compatibility with the way of heaven. Huh? Han Fei was shocked. He had never heard of such a statement. What did the degree of compatibility with the way of heaven mean? Senior brother Azure Dragon said, the extreme Tao, because it is too heaven-defying, is often not tolerated by the way of heaven, and it is extremely difficult to prove one's way. Besides, the extreme Tao is not as 11 said. The physical body and the soul are completely meaningless. Otherwise, if the extreme Tao of soul refining meets the extreme Tao of body refining, one is immune to the soul and the other has no physical body. One is spiritually immune, while the other doesn't have a physical body. The two of them can't fight at all. They can't even hit each other. Do you think that's possible? Han Fei shook his head. It seems impossible. Even if the two powerhouses don't use their souls and bodies, they should be able to fight each other, right? Senior brother Azure Dragon nodded slightly. So, the so-called extreme Tao, in fact, does not really abandon the other half, but completely hides the role of the other half. If they really fight, the two can still determine the winner. Because of the particularity of the extreme Tao, it is destined that people who take the extreme Tao are rare in the world. Maybe there are only a few in the entire East Ocean. Besides, not only does the way of heaven not allow the existence of the extreme Tao, but any force, when discovering the extreme Tao, will immediately think of obliterating them. Because once they grow up, they will be completely uncontrollable and can control the world. Therefore, the remaining extreme Tao people are either limited by some people, or limited by some seals, restraints, etc. Han Fei frowned. The people who take the extreme Tao seem to be a bit scary. Senior brother Azure Dragon said again, the extreme Tao is a matter for a few people, and the Tao of balance between the physical body and the soul is a normal Tao. It is the way of heaven and earth, and it is a road that can be connected to the way of heaven. Han Fei frowned. When eldest senior brother was lecturing just now, Han Fei felt that it seemed to be related to the way of heaven. Then, when the lecture was over, he realized that this lecture was equivalent to hundreds of years of training his foundation. Even his divine soul and physical body had achieved a corresponding balance. Han Fei frowned. Can the extreme Tao not connect to the way of heaven? Senior brother Azure Dragon was silent for a while. He was not a god. This question was too far away. Eldest senior brother slowly said, once, someone became a god with the extreme Tao, and he alone could suppress the universe. The road is open. It's extremely difficult to leave. Able to suppress the universe? Eldest senior brother's words shocked everyone, including senior brother Azure Dragon. They all seemed to be imagining how strong that person must be to get such an evaluation from eldest senior brother. However, eldest senior brother immediately said, the way of balance, there used to be a god with the extreme Tao. Wow! Suddenly, there was another shocking thunder. Just now, Han Fei and the others were envious of the power of the extreme Tao. But now it seemed that the way of balance was not weak at all. The fire that had just been ignited in Han Fei's heart was immediately extinguished by eldest senior brother's words. Han Fei thought to himself, anyway, according to senior brother Azure Dragon, there are too few people who take the extreme Tao, so few that there may only be one or two in the East Ocean divine land. Besides, if he is found out, he will be hunted down and restricted, so he might as well take his own way of balance. The way of balance may have to live for 1,000 years, but if he took the extreme Tao, he would have to live for a long time. Eldest senior brother said, Azure Dragon, continue. Senior brother Azure Dragon roared, oh. The reason why the way of balance that eldest senior brother mentioned just now will be very strong in the end is because 11 said that it can borrow the power of the way of heaven, but 11 doesn't know it very well. Azure Dragon hovered in the void, his voice shaking. In this world, in theory, there is no absolute balance at all. There can only be extreme balance. When the soul and the body become more and more balanced, the body and mind become one. It can be said that with a single thought, everything can be created. This is the power of balance given by the way of heaven. When you are in the situation of the way of balance, you can understand more, and you can borrow the power of heaven and earth. How much you can borrow depends on how much you understand this way. Of course, you can also use the way of balance to verify your way with the help of the way of heaven. This is also the reason why the growth of the way of balance is simpler, more natural, and more reasonable than that of the extreme Tao. Wow! Han Fei secretly took a breath. Hearing senior brother Azure Dragon's words, he seemed to understand something. In fact, when the demon purification pot could transform between the two powers, he actually mastered a treasure of heaven and earth. Others might not be able to achieve balance, but he had the demon purification pot, so he just needed to transform back and forth. Although this kind of transformation would take time to consolidate. Once the two were balanced, he could borrow the power of the way of heaven, and then his strength should immediately improve a lot, right? Han Fei thought about it, but he didn't want to continue asking, because this was not something that could be achieved in a short time. He had to go to the divine capital dynasty in a few years, and in the remaining years, even if he spent all his time cultivating in the origin sea, he could at most consolidate his foundation and strengthen his cultivation. Han Fei said, Thank you, eldest senior brother Azure Dragon, for answering my questions. Feng Yu immediately said angrily, Don't forget me. Han Fei really wanted to roll his eyes at her, but on the surface, he still said, Thank you, senior sister Feng Yu. Senior sister Feng Yu, there is still one thing I don't understand, and I have to ask you. Feng Yu immediately raised her head slightly. Humph. You are sensible. Tell me. Han Fei immediately grinned and said, Senior sister, do you know what speed corresponds to after the extreme speed? Chapter 2233. Feng Yu exclaimed, You've already seen superluminal speed? Faster than light? Han Fei thought to himself, so this place is also called faster than light. I thought there would be some special name here, but I didn't expect it to be so uncreative. Han Fei nodded slightly. Yes. Feng Yu immediately said, You have to ask senior brother Azure Dragon and senior sister Kagura. Senior brother Lei Heng is also fine, but he is not here today. Senior brother Azure Dragon smiled and said, This question is relatively broad. Before I tell you part of the answer, tell me first, how fast do you think you can go? Han Fei frowned. How can I guess? He had always thought that after people reached the speed of light, they couldn't go any faster. At the beginning, Han Fei even felt that his old idea was right. He thought that once the speed reached the speed of light, time would be reversed. But in fact, this was not the case. He had mastered the Tao of time, so he was not afraid to enter the river of time. Therefore, when his speed reached the speed of light for the first time, he only knew that a few choices appeared in front of him. One of them could be understood as the Sea of Stars. And the river of time was not included in Han Fei's list, because when the speed reached the speed of light, he could indeed enter the river of time. However, in addition to the Sea of Stars and the River of Time, there was a white hole and a staircase at the place where the speed of light was. This was what he wanted to know. He felt that the reason why he could surpass the speed of light was related to these two. However, senior brother Azure Dragon asked him how fast he could go. Han Fei felt that this question seemed a bit wrong. In his original impression, there were many powers beyond the speed of light. Although they were all guesses, senior brother Azure Dragon had guessed them. For example, warp drive, gravitational wave, space jump, wormhole, quantum entanglement, space folding, etc. Han Fei pondered for a moment. Speed. As long as there is enough kinetic energy, it can be infinitely accelerated, right? Senior Brother Azure Dragon seemed to be looking at Han Fei through the void. Little Junior Brother, if you say so, we can't talk about this topic anymore. Han Fei immediately grinned and estimated conservatively. His speculations were all far faster than the speed of light. However, he couldn't boast in this place, so Han Fei said, I have two guesses. One is that the speed is constantly increasing on the basis of the speed of light, not doubling. The other was similar to a kind of space jump. Just like the heaven and earth great shift, it could ignore space and time and jump from one place to another. Of course, there is no concept of speed. The eldest senior brother couldn't help but look at Han Fei gently. Feng Yi said in surprise, Little Junior Brother, you're more daring than me. You don't even want space and time anymore. Senior Sister Red Lotus giggled. Little Junior Brother's way of thinking is indeed quite peculiar. Senior Sister Green Lotus, the direction is correct. After a moment of silence, Senior Brother Azure Dragon said, the latter you mentioned can be done, but it's still too far away from you. For now, just try your best to stick to the first idea. Han Fei thought to himself, I haven't mentioned wormholes yet. However, it seems to be a breakthrough to be able to continuously accelerate on the basis of the speed of light. Senior Brother Azure Dragon said, except for those with speed talent, most people have to comprehend faster than the speed of light after turning into a star. Although many people also want to comprehend it before turning into a star. But they are usually limited by one situation. Han Fei. Senior Brother Azure Dragon explained, that is because their physique is not strong enough to bear the power of faster than the speed of light. After turning into a star, the Great Way is connected to the Heavenly Way. This is the basic requirement. When part of your Great Way becomes the Heavenly Way, you can ignore your own existence and only consider the speed. Han Fei was a little confused, but he finally understood that when the Great Way was integrated into the Heavenly Way acquiesced that you were a part of the Heavenly Way. If you were the Heavenly Way wouldn't care about you anymore. Han Fei frowned. Gosh, this is like cheating. I've become the Heavenly Way, an invisible and intangible thing. Does the speed limit have anything to do with me? Han Fei nodded again and again. Seeing that Han Fei didn't ask any more questions, Senior Brother Azure Dragon continued, in this case, there are many forces that can be accelerated. For example, if you walk the space Tao, you can directly distort the space and use the space thrust to accelerate. For example, if you walk the speed Tao, you can directly use the speed law in the Heavenly Way to boost your speed. For example, if you walk the gravity Tao, you can directly use the mutual repulsion of the two force fields to accelerate. As for which is faster, you have to try to learn to make more use of your Tao. Han Fei asked, that's it? Han Fei thought, why didn't you mention white holes and stairs? Senior Brother Azure Dragon explained, this is the first method that can surpass the speed of light, and it is also a method that can be used by ordinary people in the heaven opening state. But this method, generally speaking, is only within 10 times the speed of light. And they all have a prerequisite. That is, you have to truly integrate into the Heavenly Way first. Han Fei asked, is there a second way to increase speed? Senior Brother Azure Dragon said, don't be too ambitious. This should be a power that will only be involved after turning into a star. You've only opened the sky for a few hundred years. Unless your origin sea turns into a star, you should be far from being involved in this power now. Han Fei asked, Senior Brother Azure Dragon, is it really okay to completely integrate one's Tao with the Heavenly Way? Senior Brother Azure Dragon nodded. When you understand what the Heavenly Way is, you can solve this problem yourself. Han Fei asked, Senior Brother Azure Dragon, under normal circumstances, when is it appropriate for a heaven opening state to turn into a star? The larger the origin sea, the more resources it needs. But if the resources are endless, won't I never be able to turn into a star? Eldest senior brother said, when it's time to turn into a star, you will understand it. Little junior brother, your current problem is too far away from you. It's time for you to try to cross the origin sea and enter the star sea. Suddenly, Han Fei's heart trembled. He had never thought about stepping into the star sea. Although the star sea had been opened up for a long time, he hadn't even dealt with the origin sea yet. How could he have time to study the star sea? But now eldest senior brother interrupted him and asked him to enter the star sea. Was there the answer he wanted in the star sea? Immediately, Han Fei cupped his hands. Yes, eldest senior brother, I will try to enter the star sea when I get back. At this point, Han Fei no longer asked questions, even though he still had a lot of questions. However, everything had to be done step by step. If it weren't for this trip to the number 3 revival land, he would not have thought of asking these questions for the time being. Feng Yu said, that's right, little junior brother, you haven't gone deep into the sea opening realm yet. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many questions. So, do you have any information to share? Let me say first, I encountered a prehistoric ferocious beast on the way from the South Sea Divine Land to the East Sea Divine Land. Senior sister Azure Lotus asked, did the prehistoric ferocious beast start to walk into the world? Feng Yu said, I don't know. After a fight, that guy ran away. But recently, because of the 10,000-year competition of the East Sea Divine Land, other things don't seem to attract much attention. Senior brother Azure Dragon said, the black dragon of the dragon clan hasn't been killed yet. I don't know where he is hiding. He is not weak. If you meet him, be careful. World of Green Lotus asked, not many people came this time, so we have nothing to say. Little junior brother, do you have anything to say? Since you are going to participate in the 10,000-year competition of the Divine Capital Dynasty, you should be in the East Sea Divine Land, right? Han Fei thought for a while and said, I can deal with things here by myself for the time being. Well, I met a person named Mo Chi. This person walks the Tao of Time. I feel that she has tested me. I suspect that she has something to do with the Temple of Time. Temple of Time. Azure Dragon said solemnly, did she invite you to join the Temple of Time? Han Fei shook his head. Not yet, but I guess it's possible. She doesn't know my true identity. Feng Yu said in surprise, you just entered the Sea Realm and you already met people from the 3 divine temples. What a coincidence. Han Fei shrugged. I'm not sure. At this time, eldest senior brother said, let nature take its course. Don't join them easily. Han Fei nodded. Since he didn't want to tell others about the chaotic wasteland for the time being, he wanted to solve it himself. This was also a trial that Han Fei gave himself. Of course, the starting point of the trial was a bit high, but it would take him a long time. As senior brother Azure Dragon said, it had only been 300 years since he entered the heaven-opening realm, and there were still too many things he didn't know. He hadn't even been to the Star Sea. For a period of time in the future, what he needed to do was sharpen himself, polish himself, consolidate his foundation, study speed, cultivate his body, and pursue balance. When Han Fei thought about it, he suddenly had a headache. None of these seemed to be completed overnight. Sure enough, the heaven-opening realm still had a long way to go. He could only do it step by step. Feng Yu said, little junior brother, I will also go to the 10,000-year competition. When the time comes, senior sister will bring you to eat delicious food and drink spicy drinks. The corners of Han Fei's mouth twitched. Thank you, senior sister. Eldest senior brother nodded. Okay, that's all for today. Let's go. Chapter 2234. After the party, Han Fei felt much more at ease. Because at this party, he knew that he could actually achieve the way of absolute balance. He hadn't pursued it before, but now it was time to pursue it. Of course, before pursuing this way of absolute balance, he had to go to the Star Sea. In the Origin Sea. Han Fei looked up. Although he had the Star Sea domain map, that thing didn't correspond to the current Star Sea. Besides, the old turtle had said before that the star sea couldn't be entered casually because it was also very dangerous. Therefore, Han Fei hadn't been there for a long time. But now, there seemed to be some secrets in the star sea that he had to explore. With a thought, Han Fei appeared on the edge of the star sea. This was his origin sea. As long as he was within the range of the origin sea, he could go anywhere he wanted with just a thought. Han Fei thought that he only needed to take one step to enter the star sea. However, when he took this step, he suddenly realized that he seemed to have fallen into a quagmire that was full of resistance. Although the sea of stars was right in front of him, this was the first time he realized that there was an invisible barrier between the origin source sea and the sea of stars. This quagmire felt like a kind of gravitational space, but also like a kind of suppression from the power of the heavenly way. Anyway, Han Fei felt that his blood was boiling and his power was about to burst out. It wasn't until Han Fei showed 80% of his power that he felt he could rush over. However, when Han Fei realized that he could leave this quagmire, he immediately gave up, because he suddenly found that this quagmire was an excellent place for body tempering. The void body tempering technique was about tempering the body with the collapsing power of the endless void. And in this quagmire, Han Fei knew that it was no longer within the scope of the origin sea. Because he found that the time acceleration effect here was more than half that in his origin sea. The only good thing was that this place was affected by the origin sea and time acceleration. Since it was not completely his origin sea, he could cause the void to collapse. But in fact, it was difficult for even Han Fei to break out of here. To cause the void to collapse, it required a lot of power. Han Fei could understand that this quagmire might be to protect the experts who had just entered the sky-opening state. Don't think about running to the sea of stars, or you might die there. If you have the ability, you should be able to easily pass through this quagmire first. Han Fei was not in a hurry to enter the sea of stars. Anyway, he already had a direction. Buzz, when Han Fei manipulated the void, the terrifying power penetrated the quagmire, like a drop of water hitting the calm surface of a lake, setting off ripples. Where the drop of water fell, it formed an impact beam, and the center of the beam was the connection point between the endless void and the quagmire. At that moment, the raging power seemed to be tearing Han Fei's flesh and blood apart. Han Fei sensed that there seemed to be infinite Tao between heaven and earth attacking him. The golden jade marrow in his bones began to tremble. A massive amount of primal chaos chi flowed into his body. Yin-yang millstone. Han Fei quickly urged Little Black and Little White to activate the yin-yang millstone. At that moment, Han Fei felt that his body refining speed was 10 times, 100 times faster than before. Hiss. Han Fei thought that something like the golden jade marrow was too difficult to cultivate. According to the usual speed, it might take 100,000 years to fill his body with the golden jade marrow. But now it seemed that maybe because of the major breakthrough in his strength, or because of the star sea quagmire, or both, Han Fei activated the void body refining art and his speed soared. At this speed, it might only take him 1 or 2,000 years to complete the refining of the golden jade marrow. At that time, his physical body would experience another leap in quality. Unfortunately, this star sea quagmire was not completely within the scope of the source sea, so the effect of time acceleration was greatly reduced. As for how much time acceleration was here, he had to test it first. So, a few months later, Han Fei sighed in his heart. He didn't expect that the time acceleration here would be so slow. It was only 8 times faster. In other words, even if the effect of the void body refining art was dozens or hundreds of times better, it would still take 200 or 300 years for him to fill his body with the golden jade marrow. Han Fei thought to himself, anyway, before the Divine Capital Dynasty's grand competition of 10,000 years, there was no hope for me to improve my body because there was not enough time. That was why Han Fei only cultivated in this star sea quagmire for a year to make himself more adapted to the resistance in the quagmire, and then he broke through the quagmire and entered the star sea. Pop! When Han Fei broke out of the quagmire for the first time and set foot in the star sea, he felt as if he had burst a bubble. As soon as he entered the star sea, Han Fei felt extremely cold, piercing to the bone. Han Fei was speechless. This place seemed to be very suitable for practicing the void body refining art. Han Fei could feel a large amount of mixed chaotic energy in the star sea. In the boundless silence, Han Fei could also feel that there was an invisible force in the star sea that was pulling his Tao. In addition to these two feelings, Han Fei felt that there was an inexplicable pressure on his soul. There was a force trying to touch his soul, making him have a feeling of wanting to sleep. Hiss. The endless void? Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. He had felt a stronger feeling than this before. Over there was the endless void. When he was in the Pioneer Sea realm, Han Fei had entered the endless void. At that time, he really fell asleep and was saved by Master Beast King. That kind of impression was indelible. Although he had now opened the sky, he still couldn't forget that feeling. He felt that if he stayed in the star sea for a long time, he might also fall into a deep sleep like he did in the endless void. Han Fei looked back at his origin sea, which was already blurred, as if it was shrouded in a layer of mist. No wonder they say that the star sea is dangerous. I've just come out, but I already feel so dangerous. If I really travel to the depths of the star sea, what if I can't find my way back? At this moment, Han Fei didn't dare to be too far away from his origin sea. He carried out a total of 4 experiments in the star sea. One was to practice the void body refining art. After several months of confirmation, Han Fei found that the speed of cultivation in the star sea was more than 10 times faster than in the sea realm. However, it was slower than in the quagmire. The reason was that the quagmire was affected by the origin sea and there was time acceleration. In the star sea, he couldn't accelerate time, so body refining here was slower than in the quagmire. The second experiment was naturally to practice the void sky observation technique. It didn't take a month. In a few days, Han Fei could confirm that practicing the void sky observation technique in the star sea could help him better understand the heavenly way. He could even capture all the great Taos he had walked in the star sea. Then, Han Fei discovered one thing, that was, the star sea was full of heavenly way. He wanted to integrate with the heavenly way, so cultivating in the star sea was the most suitable. The speed was 10 times faster than in the sea realm. The third experiment was to integrate with the heavenly way. The prerequisite for superluminal speed was that he needed to use the power of the heavenly way. And the prerequisite for using the power of the heavenly way was that he needed to integrate with the heavenly way. Fundamentally speaking, this was the real integration of nature and man. Han Fei integrated the great Tao of gravity and the great Tao of space. For Han Fei, it wasn't difficult to integrate with the heavenly way. The true meaning of return to origin was to integrate heaven and earth into one. All he needed to do was to return the great Tao to the heavenly way. When Azure Dragon told Han Fei all this, Han Fei already knew the way to cultivate faster than light. At this moment, with the help of anti-gravity, Han Fei's speed soared again. When the speed exceeded the critical point of the speed of light, the white holes and stairs that Han Fei saw disappeared. What was left were illusory void lines. This was just like when Han Fei escaped from the void for the first time. It could also be compared to a void light explosion cloud similar to a sonic boom cloud. 2 years later. In a certain star sea, there was an irregular distortion in the void, but there was no light or shadow. When the distorted void disappeared, a figure appeared above the hazy fog. It's time to go out, but the time is too short. At present, I can only reach 3 times the speed of light. The Emperor Sparrow's voice sounded. That's not bad. According to my inherited memory, there are very few people who can surpass the speed of light before turning into a star. Even after turning into a star, not everyone can master the speed of light. Han Fei said, however, I didn't expect you to be able to open a sky in the star sea. This is a big discovery. If everyone can open a sky in the star sea, they won't be disturbed at all, right? The Emperor Sparrow said, not all creatures can open a sky in the star sea. The heavenly tribulation in the star sea is stronger than that in the sea realm. Just like your origin sea is separated from the star sea by a layer of quagmire, the sea realm is also separated from the star sea by such a layer of quagmire. When the power of the heavenly tribulation arrives in the sea realm, it will be weakened because of the quagmire. Therefore, most people who can open a sky in the sea realm will not choose to open a sky in the star sea. Han Fei scoffed. You're just saying that you're strong. The Emperor Sparrow held his head high and snorted. That's the truth. If you can prove your Tao in the star sea, you will find that people like the Emperor of 10,000 Scales are nothing. Chapter 22:35. The Emperor Sparrow made it sound easy, but Han Fei knew very well how difficult it was to create a new world in the star ocean. If the Emperor Sparrow hadn't been born to be an emperor, it would have been killed in the star ocean. Even though it was a Emperor Sparrow, this was the most miserable time that Han Fei had ever seen it. It was a purple-red heavenly tribulation. Normal people couldn't withstand two of them. In the past 3 years, Han Fei didn't fall asleep, but he could feel that it wasn't time yet. However, he could sense that it was just not time yet. If he had another 3 years, he might not be able to hold on any longer and would want to sleep in the sea of stars. Therefore, the star ocean and the endless void had a lot in common. At least, both could make people fall asleep. However, as he became stronger and stronger, he could resist the power that made people sleepy. With Han Fei's current strength, he could stay in the star ocean for 3 to 5 years. If he really stayed for 30 to 50 years, he would probably fall asleep and drift in the star ocean. However, in any case, after 5 years of seclusion, Han Fei's combat power was no longer what it used to be. At this moment, Han Fei even felt that even if he didn't use the Tao, he might be able to become one of the top 10 lords. Before returning to the Scavenger City, Han Fei secretly went to White Jade City number 68 and took Zhang Daqian's clone with him. Now, Neza had cultivated for more than 300 years, and so had Zhang Daqian. Neza had rich combat experience and had been in the graveyard battlefield for more than 300 years, so he was comparable to the top heavenly talents in the chaotic wasteland. And Zhang Daqian was already a top heavenly talent. Zhang Daqian walked the giant beast Divine Tao, and now his body was already more than 500 kilometers long. The characteristics of the undying devil barrier bloodline far surpassed Neza's body. It relied on its natural instincts such as regeneration, self-healing, unloading, and devouring the soul. It could be said that it was almost impossible to kill Zhang Daqian's clone in the same realm. Besides, with Zhang Daqian's Tao of Nirvana, if anyone could kill him, he would have to thank them for giving him a chance to be Nirvana. Of course, with Han Fei's resource collection ability. At least for now, the resources for Zhang Daqian's first Nirvana were completely enough. However, although the resources were ready, Zhang Daqian hadn't reached the time for Nirvana yet. Han Fei estimated that Zhang Daqian's first Nirvana rebirth might be in the heaven opening state. Of course, if he could find someone stronger than Zhang Daqian on this trip to the Divine Capital Dynasty and kill him, Han Fei felt that it would be a good choice. Scavenger City. When Han Fei returned to the Scavenger City, the people in the city were no different from usual. After Han Fei came back, he went straight to where Mo-Chi was. Now, he had nothing to worry about. Mo-Chi was a special existence in Scavenger City. Moreover, with the previous experience of Mo-Chi looking for him, under normal circumstances, others would not feel that there was anything wrong with him taking the initiative to look for her. However, as soon as Han Fei arrived, he found that there were many young talents waiting in line outside Mo-Chi's residence. Han Fei didn't release his perception, so he didn't know what these people were doing around Mo-Chi. The point was that none of these people was weak. From their aura, Han Fei could see that all of them could enter the internal camp and would definitely rank high. Because Han Fei had always been low-key, when he first came, he didn't attract the attention of others. Everyone was waiting in line. Many people were even followed by their entourage. A few of them even had heaven-opening state powerhouses following them. They are all rich second generations. At this moment, someone frowned and said, "How long do we have to wait?" "It's been 3 days. Isn't this person too arrogant?" Someone snorted coldly. Butler, do I have to wait for this person? Can't we invite her to our home? The butler laughed. Oh. Little ancestor, under normal circumstances, we can't invite her. The young man asked, even the Zhou family can't invite her? A woman glanced at him. Zhou Bo, no one will think you are mute if you don't speak. Even your father has to wait in line here. Who do you think you are? The man who was scolded by the woman was furious. Panning, what do you mean? Is it my business to talk to you? Who cut the line just now? The woman named Panning said coldly, are you going to take this position back? Humph. Zhou Bo snorted and didn't speak again. The Pan family was the top family in the scavenger city. It was impossible for him to take her position. Otherwise, he wouldn't be embarrassed later. Someone lowered his head and sneered. Useless. Panning scared him with just one sentence. Do you still want to leave a name in the 10,000-year competition? Dream on. When Zhou Bo heard this, he was about to explode in anger when he suddenly heard a clear voice coming from the house. Come in. Immediately, all the young talents in line were refreshed. Panning immediately straightened up, thinking that it had been 3 days. This person was finally in a good mood and began to receive guests. Panning got up and walked out of Mo Chi's residence. She had only taken 10 steps when an invisible force pushed her back. If it's not you, why are you walking? Panning. Panning was dumbfounded. I'm the first in line. Who else could it be but me? Isn't it first come, first served? At this time, Panning couldn't help but look back, and then she saw that everyone was looking back and looking around. Until they saw at the end of the line. Well, to be precise, hundreds of kilometers away from the line, an alien powerhouse carrying a knife and covered in red scales slowly walked over. Han Fei had disguised himself as his ancestor twice, and his red scales had become his trademark. Therefore, when the children of the big clans looked over, they immediately remembered that this was Yi Fenglu. Under normal circumstances, the children of the big clans wouldn't enter the law enforcement camp. Those who entered the law enforcement camp, even if they were from the internal camp, were generally not the core children of the big clans. Because those real core children didn't need to fight randomly in the graveyard battlefield like most people. They had a solid family background, enough secret realms to challenge, and even controlled the primitive graveyard and the land of recovery. Anyway, they had plenty of places and resources to provide for the consumption of the core children. At this moment, such a group of core children, looking at Han Fei, were surprised at first, and then they all cast unfriendly looks at him, and some looked indifferent as if looking at a dead man. Han Fei was in a hurry and had no time to waste here. He came to see Mo Chi for the last time because he wanted to see if his ally had any special information for him before he set off. So, in front of so many children of the big clans, Han Fei walked forward indifferently. Until Zhou Bo took a step forward and blocked in front of Han Fei. The corners of Zhou Bo's mouth curled up, and he sneered. Senior Mo Chi, first come, first served. This person is the last in line. Don't we have an explanation? Mo Chi didn't respond, and Han Fei said indifferently, get out of the way. Zhou Bo asked, do you know who you are talking to? Han Fei's eyes turned cold, and an invisible killing intent burst out. Zhou Bo was startled by the sudden burst of killing intent and subconsciously took a step back. But then he felt ashamed. As a member of the Zhou family, how could he be intimidated by someone with a glance? No, if I can't get back at him today, how can I maintain my prestige in the future? Suddenly, Zhou Bo's face became gloomy. I'll give you a chance. Walk from in front of me to the end of the line, and I won't embarrass you today. Idiot. Han Fei didn't even look at him. His figure flashed and he was about to pass directly. But Zhou Bo's strength was not weak either. He immediately intercepted Han Fei, and this attack was not an ordinary one. He directly shot a spike at the back of Han Fei's head. Someone was surprised. Soul-fixing spike. Are you going to kill people in the city? Swish clang at that moment, no one saw it clearly. They only saw a flash of white light. The next moment, the steward of the Zhou family, who was watching this scene, suddenly changed his face and reached out to block it. Puff! In the blink of an eye, the soul-fixing spike was already in Han Fei's hand. And Zhou Bo, who was about to attack, stretched out one hand, but then his body, starting from the center of his eyebrows to his lower abdomen, was directly divided into two halves. His whole body was instantly cut off. And the two fingers of the steward of the Zhou family were directly cut off. Wow! So fast. Oh my god, he cut off Steward Zhou's fingers. This Yi Feng Lu is stronger than the rumors say. Damn, no wonder this kid can enter by Ranran's first squad. Wow! This kid is quite arrogant. I really want to kill him. For a moment, there was a lot of discussion. Pan Ying's heart skipped a beat. The knife just now was so fast that even she could barely see the shadow of the knife. Such a knife, she felt that she might not be able to block it. This Yi Feng Lu was indeed much stronger than the rumors said. Han Fei didn't stop, but Steward Zhou snorted coldly. Asshole, stop. Regardless of whether Han Fei agreed or not, Steward Zhou was about to reach out to grab Han Fei. However, suddenly, a blue light barrier appeared. Steward Zhou was shocked and wanted to withdraw his hand, but one of his hands was completely rotten. He wanted to regrow his hand, but to his horror, he found that his hand couldn't be regrown. It seemed to be completely separated from him. An arrogant snort came out. Now anyone dares to be presumptuous in front of my house. Kneel there. Steward Zhou was shocked. He didn't want to kneel, but he still felt the power of time on his wrist. He was sure that if he didn't kneel, he would die today. Plop. Immediately, Steward Zhou knelt on the ground, not daring to say a word. At this moment, the children of the big clans were all shocked. Is this person inside so strong? So arrogant? Han Fei continued forward. When he passed by Pan Ying, the latter suddenly said, Yi Feng Lu. Han Fei stopped and tilted his head. You also want to stop me? Pan Ying shook her head slightly and said lightly, I'm Pan Ying. Let's get to know each other. Han Fei raised his eyelids and looked straight ahead. He didn't stop at all, as if he had never stopped at all. After Han Fei passed by Pan Ying, an indifferent voice replied, not interested. Pan Ying, the rich second generations. Chapter 2236. Fuck, I'm going to teach him a lesson when I get back. Zhou Bo didn't repair his body until he walked into Mo Chi's house. He didn't even look at Butler Zhou, who was kneeling on the ground and cursed at Mo Chi's house. What the fuck are you talking about? You're just a fucking bastard. Bam! Without saying a word, a slap came out of nowhere and directly smashed half of Zhou Bo's body. Bastard, you unfilial son, go home and kneel. You don't have to go to this major competition. The newcomer looked dignified, and many of the children here couldn't help but be cautious when they saw him. Isn't this Zhou Liheng, the current leader of the Zhou family? Zhou Bo was still dumbfounded. At this moment, he saw his father cupping his hands at the house. Fairy Mo Chi, my son is not sensible and has offended you. I'll take him back now and discipline him. As for the butler, you can make him kneel for as long as you want him to. Dad! What are you? Shut up. Zhou Bo didn't dare to speak at all. However, the next sentence caused the face of the fourth-rank lord to turn ashen. A voice came from the house. Zhou Liheng, you'd better have another child. I've calculated for this child. He doesn't have much luck, and there will be a big tribulation within 1,000 years. Even if he survives this tribulation, there will be another one. In short, he won't live more than 3,000 years and will definitely die. Zhou Liheng's face was livid, and his eyelids trembled a few times. I gave birth to a useless child. Even though Zhou Liheng thought his son was not bad, he didn't dare to doubt Mo Chi's words. Even an emperor had to ask her for help, and it seemed that she didn't need to deceive his son. She still had to stay in the scavenger city for a long time. 1,000 years was just a snap of the fingers. Why did she have to deceive him? Suddenly, Zhou Liheng's eyes turned cold. How could he have given birth to such a stupid son? With such a personality, it would be difficult for him to live to 3,000 years old. Zhou Bo had just recovered, and when he heard Mo Qi's evaluation of him, he was anxious. Dad, don't listen to her, smack. Zhou Liheng sent a backhand slap across Zhou Bo's face. Zhou Bo's body flew out like a cannonball. Zhou Liheng cupped his hands towards Mo Qi, then turned around coldly. From today onwards, you are no longer the young master of the Zhou family. All resources of the family will be cut off from you. Go out on your own. Come back if you can live past 3,000 years old. Zhou Bo. All the core disciples. Everyone was dumbfounded. Even Panning was dumbfounded. They knew that Lord Mo Qi was not to be trifled with and had to be respected. That was why he waited in line for 3 days. However, they didn't expect this master to be so terrifying that he could even tell lies. Just look at the Zhou family head's reaction. Because of a single sentence from Mo Qi, Zhou Bo's future was directly taken away. The dignified young master of the Zhou clan was directly demoted to a mortal. Who could accept this? Most importantly, Zhou Liheng's reaction seemed to clearly tell them the weight of this person's words. Immediately, everyone became respectful again. They did not want to become the next Zhou Bo. At the same time, they also realized that the identity of the so-called core disciples of the family was not as high as they thought. There were still many people who could ruin your fate with a single glance. In Mo Qi's room, Han Fei sat lazily on a chair. You were ruined by a single sentence? Mo Qi said angrily, I didn't lie. That person's luck is not good. He really can't live past 3,000 years. Han Fei asked, look at these people. Which one has good luck? Mo Qi shrugged. I don't want to see. Although she said that she didn't want to look, Mo Qi took a few glances at them. Then, she had an idea. Are they all short-lived? With that, Mo Qi couldn't help looking at Han Fei, his eyes shining. Han Fei asked, why are you looking at me? What does it have to do with me? Aren't they going to participate in the 10,000-year competition? They live like princes every day. When they get there, they will fight to the death. All the heavenly talents of the entire East Ocean divine continent will gather there. I think it's a miracle that they don't die. Mo Qi frowned. What did you explain? Han Fei asked, did I explain? Mo Qi scoffed. You talk a little too much today. Han Fei's face suddenly tightened. Mainly, I want to meet your ally. After looking at Han Fei for a moment, Mo Qi suddenly said, I don't know why, but I suddenly feel that you are the original body. Han Fei asked, me? Mo Qi suddenly smiled. Don't pretend. You've exposed yourself. You actually deceived me. I even thought you were an incarnation. Men nowadays are very bad. Han Fei frowned. How could I be the original body? Mo Qi scoffed. Humph. Don't deny it. You have sealed the great path of time, right? So, when I kissed you just now, I sensed it through deep physical contact. Han Fei was confused. Huh? Mo Qi asked, don't you know that when two people of the same great path come into physical contact, they will sense each other? Han Fei was dumbfounded. When did you kiss me? Mo Qi said, you sealed the great path of time, so you didn't know that I just used flowing time. Han Fei was speechless. Really? Wait, don't you have a bottom line? Let me tell you, I have a wife. I won't be responsible for you. Mo Qi asked, tell me. Why didn't I tell you that I was the original body? Han Fei narrowed his eyes. It doesn't make sense for you to know whether I am the original body or not. Besides, I don't want my plan to be flawed. Mo Qi's eyes lit up. So, you are really the original body? Huh? Han Fei suddenly stood up. Wait, what do you mean? Mo Chi immediately smiled. Ha ha ha. I lied to you just now. I didn't use flowing time to kiss you. Why should I kiss you? You look like this now. Why should I kiss you? Why should I? Han Fei didn't know what to say. Sure enough, women were born liars. The more beautiful a woman was, the more likely she was to deceive people. The ancients were right. Mo Chi was pleasantly surprised. Wow, you even deceived me. Did you take a special great path? It can't be a great technique, right? I can't figure out how there can be a great technique that can hide oneself in front of an emperor. Han Fei thought to himself, it's normal that you don't know. How can you know the divine technique produced by the demon purification pot? Unfortunately, Han Fei tragically found that he was fooled and didn't persist any longer. How did you guess it? Mo Chi shrugged. You're growing too fast. It doesn't make sense. Alas, Han Fei let out a long breath. Okay, let's not beat around the bush. I'm not here to let you see through my identity. I just want to know that you don't really have to be trapped here, right? With your status, conditions, and identity, it shouldn't be difficult for you to leave the city of scavengers, right? This was a question that had been on Han Fei's mind for a long time. He wanted to figure it out before he went to the divine capital dynasty. Otherwise, he always felt that there was something wrong with what Mo Chi asked him to do. Mo Chi widened her eyes and looked at Han Fei in surprise. What's my identity? Han Fei said, the 10 lords. You can scold them at will. Zhao Honghuang can't control you. The 10,000 Scales Emperor acquiesces to your actions. He will probably ask you for help, right? You are not from the 10,000 Scales clan yet, but your status in the city of scavengers is so special. I even think you are above Zhao Honghuang. So, why did you come to me? Why don't you go out by yourself? Based on the above questions, Han Fei suspected that Mo Chi was from the Temple of Time at the gathering in the Void Temple. This was his inherent impression. He felt that those who walked the Tao of Time would have something to do with the Temple of Time. Because he had only seen 2 in total. The Time Dragon Carp was the first, and Mo Chi was the second. The Time Dragon Carp was hunted by the Temple of Time, and Mo Chi had a high status. It was impossible not to arouse his suspicion. Smack. Mo Chi patted Han Fei on the shoulder like a big boss. Hey! I thought it was something important. I'm on a trial. Don't worry about my identity. Anyway, I can only leave here with my own ability. No matter what means I can use, I can only use my own means. Otherwise, how can I stay here? Wouldn't it be better for me to go to the divine capital dynasty? Han Fei chuckled. Then your trial is really long. Did the 10,000 Scales Emperor watch you in person? Mo Chi said, everyone's trial method is different. Although I am respected in the city of scavengers and have countless resources, I can do whatever I want. But I'm trapped. I can't just stare at the 10,000 Scales clan for tens of thousands of years, can I? Han Fei didn't speak but just looked at Mo Chi quietly. The latter seemed a little guilty. After a long while, he said, then if I tell you, will you also tell me why you tried so hard to sneak into the city of scavengers? With your strength, you can do well in the outside world. There's no reason for you to stay here, right? Han Fei nodded. Okay. Mo Chi's eyes lit up. Really? Han Fei nodded. Yes. Mo Chi immediately said, I come from a super force. Because this is my last trial, I must pass it alone. Once this trial is over, no one will care about me anymore. Although I can constantly harvest resources in the city of scavengers, become stronger, polish my foundation, and even explore the Sea of Stars, I hate the long time. Han Fei frowned. As expected of a super force. If not, why would the 10,000 Scales Emperor be so polite to Mo Chi? Han Fei asked, so, you really don't care about the life or death of the 10,000 Scales clan? You're just staying here temporarily. Mo Chi shook her head. I really don't care. The rise and fall of a race is a natural thing. In this world, races disappear and new races rise every day, just like birth, aging, sickness, and death. Anyway, my family never interferes with this. What about you? Why did you sneak into the 10,000 Scales clan? Han Fei took a deep look at Mo Chi. After a while, he became serious and said word by word, because I am the emperor of the human race. Chapter 2237. Emperor of the human race? As soon as Han Fei said this, Mo Chi immediately understood. The 10,000 Scale race had enslaved humans for tens of thousands of years. There were many strong humans who resisted. However, in the territory of the 10,000 Scale race, what was the point of resisting? Throughout history, there had been more than one or two human emperors who had fallen. Even if there were heaven-opening state powerhouses among humans, it was useless. The upper limit of martial power was suppressed by the 10,000 Scale race. As soon as a strong powerhouse appeared, he was crushed to death. How could he resist? Therefore, when Han Fei said, Emperor of the human race, Mo Chi knew that Han Fei and the 10,000 Scale race were mortal enemies. However, Mo Chi was also very smart. She didn't exclaim immediately. Instead, she said in surprise, so, your current body is fake? No, no, no. Since you sealed the great path of time on this body, this is your original body. But since you're walking on the great path of human emperor, you must be in human form. So, you just disguised yourself. Oh my God, what kind of disguise can make you do this? Teach me, teach me. Han Fei looked at Mo Chi as if she was an idiot. Do you believe me if I say I can't teach you? No. Han Fei shrugged. Some things can be taught, and some things can't be taught. Besides, you're cheating, right? Do you think your elders will give you another final trial if they know you completed the trial this way? If I'm not wrong, your elders can trace back time too. Han Fei's question scared Mo Chi. Well, it was really possible. If he were to go back in time and find out that he had completed the trial in such a manner, he would probably have to go through another round. Mo Chi shivered. She was almost done with this round. She couldn't waste tens of thousands of years to complete a new trial. Although she really wanted Han Fei's disguise technique, she didn't continue asking. Han Fei said, so, you don't have to worry that I'll leave the scavenger city. I won't leave until the 10,000 Scale race is destroyed. Mo Chi said, but when will you destroy the 10,000 Scale race? Do you think you can destroy the 10,000 Scale race without attaining the Tao? Han Fei grinned. Solutions are always more difficult than difficulties. Difficult, indeed a little difficult. But just as you are now in the final trial. As the human emperor, annihilating the 10,000 Scale tribe is also my trial. This trial will determine whether or not I can prove my Tao. Mo Chi said, but you haven't become a star yet. If I were to wait for you to destroy the 10,000 Scale tribe and then help me escape, I might as well rely on myself. Han Fei grinned. You and I have a 1,000-year agreement. Within 1,000 years, even if the 10,000 Scale tribe is not annihilated, I will bring you away. Of course, if you manage to kill half of the 10,000 Scale tribe in the trial, do you think your seniors will give you extra points in the trial? Mo Chi's eyes lit up, but then she said, you want to use me. I'm telling the truth. Besides, I don't expect you to help me kill the 10,000 Scales emperor. He is mine, and he can only be mine. You are quite confident. But I feel that if the 10,000 Scale tribe is not destroyed, you may never prove your Tao. This means that even if you become a star, you will at most be on the verge of proving your Tao. To kill the 10,000 Scales emperor, the difficulty, tisk tsk. Han Fei grinned. That's my business. Mo Chi shrugged. All right. Compared to my trial, your trial is more difficult. But I'm a little curious. You don't seem to have a good impression of the primordial city. You are quite good at framing others. Unconsciously, you have created a barrier between the scavenger city and the primordial city. Han Fei yelled, between me and the primordial city, that's a private matter. I will also kill the clan's 2 emperors. Mo Chi couldn't help but stick out her tongue. What a murderous intent. I haven't even become a star, and I'm already thinking about killing the 3 emperors. Mo Chi couldn't help but think that fortunately, the trial given to her by her elders wasn't for her to kill an emperor. Otherwise, she wouldn't know when she would end up like Han Fei. Mo Chi thought that Han Fei would be confined to his own trial for a long time, but Han Fei didn't think so. For him, it was not difficult to become a star. Whatever the reason, since he could kill in Taiping and Qiu Shouzang now, he could naturally kill others in the future. When he really rose up, resources were not worth mentioning at all. Now that Han Fei and Mo Chi had told each other everything, there was no more grudge in his heart. So Mo Chi said, okay, you can't stay here all the time. Finally, I'll give you a piece of information. Your trip this time is not going well. Han Fei asked, huh? Mo Chi said, yes, your trip to the divine capital dynasty this time won't be smooth. Han Fei asked, did you see it with time reversal? Mo Chi shrugged. I don't have that ability. I just calculated it. Except for you, I'm very good at judging others. Han Fei understood. It doesn't matter. They are not my clansmen anyway. Even if they all die, I can still live. Mo Chi asked, if they all die, you are the only one alive. Do you dare to come back? Han Fei smiled slightly. It's not easy to kill them all. Han Fei didn't enter Mo Chi's residence for a long time. When he came out, the butler of the Zhou family was still kneeling there. As for Zhou Liheng and Zhou Bo, they were no longer there. Han Fei ignored Pan Ying and the others and went straight to the law enforcement camp. When he arrived at the law enforcement camp, before Han Fei entered the inner camp, Chen Yan said to Han Fei via voice transmission, boy, you're really something. As soon as you came back, you killed the young master of the Zhou family. Han Fei stopped and slightly cupped his hands. He is no longer the young master of the Zhou family now. Chen Yan scoffed. That's because Master Mo Chi is capable, not because of you. The first thing you did when you came back was to find Master Mo Chi. What happened? Han Fei nodded. I went to thank him. Master Mo Chi calculated for me before. Chen Yan frowned. Oh. He calculated for you this time too? Han Fei frowned and then nodded. Forget it. He said that those who survive a great disaster are bound to have good fortune later on. Ha! Chen Yan suddenly appeared beside Han Fei. Master Mo Chi really said these words to you? Han Fei nodded. Yes, you can ask him at any time, Master. Chen Yan was not interested in provoking Mo Chi. Others might not know, but he knew that Mo Chi had a bad temper. Since Han Fei was so sure, there shouldn't be any problem. Besides, he had to report it to Master Primordial anyway. If he really wanted to ask, he would let Master Primordial ask him. Interestingly, this fortune was actually not bad. If these words were true, it at least meant that Han Fei survived the competition, and he was lucky enough to win the 10,000 years competition. Chen Yan nodded. It's almost time for you to come back. You don't have to go back to the law enforcement camp. Just come with me. Han Fei followed Chen Yan and went straight to an open space outside Zhao Honghuang's cultivation place. However, at this moment, there were already a lot of people sitting here, 87 in total, including Bai Ranran and Tian Hong. When Han Fei appeared here, Bai Ranran slightly raised her eyes and didn't greet him. The others, after seeing Han Fei, were slightly surprised, but not very surprised. Someone had heard that Han Fei had gained a lot in the number 3 land of revival. Since he had gained a lot, he must have gone to digest the harvest during this period of time. Now that he could come here, it didn't seem to be a big problem. After all, Han Fei's previous performance was very strong, like a rising star. Chen Yan said, "Take a seat. In another half a month, almost everyone will be here." Chen Yan didn't say anything, and Han Fei didn't ask. Han Fei found a random place and sat down cross-legged, but there were some faint energy fluctuations coming from his body. It seemed to be telling others that his strength had been growing very fast recently and he was no longer the same person a few years ago. Of course, this kind of energy fluctuation was very subtle, and most people didn't notice it. Within half a month, more and more people came, from number 88 to number 138. And then from number 138 to number 150. The children of the big clans that Han Fei had seen before also came. Pan Ying, surprisingly, sat next to Bai Ranran. Until this half a month later, suddenly from the depths of the undersea jungle, a voice came, "Come in." Many people were shocked. They were unable to suppress the joy in their hearts. Their hearts were filled with excitement. "I've finally met Lord Chaos." All the way until everyone was standing in front of Zhao Honghuang in a line. No one dared to move, as they all wanted to show Zhao Honghuang how powerful they were. Zhao Honghuang said, "Everyone, do you know why you are here today?" In fact, everyone who should know knew. Those who could be selected more or less knew something. 80% of the people here actually knew. Zhao Honghuang didn't wait for their response, but directly said, "The Divine Capital Dynasty holds a major competition every 10,000 years to select heavenly talents. The rewards are generous. This opportunity is extremely rare. In the entire scavenger city, I will only select 150 of you. Even if you can't compete with others, you can still watch the battle. Countless heavenly talents from the divine land of the East Ocean will participate and verify with each other. Even if you watch this major competition, you will still benefit a lot. Not to mention, once you are selected, you may go to the real starting ground, the treasure land in the Star Ocean and other places where treasures are everywhere." Han Fei had already heard that many people's breathing became heavier, and their blood flowed faster. It seemed that they already had a share of the treasures on the ground. Zhao Honghuang smiled slightly. "This opportunity only comes once in 10,000 years. You must cherish it. Generally speaking, as long as you can come back alive, it's not difficult for you to open the sky." Chapter 2238. For most pioneer sea-state powerhouses, splitting open the sky was their greatest pursuit. However, for those who could participate in the tournament of 10,000 years, splitting open the sky would be their new starting point. Everyone here even felt that if they participated in the great competition of the 10,000 years, they would definitely be able to split open the sky. Apart from these pioneer sea-state powerhouses, the scavenger city would also select a batch of venerable powerhouses. That was because the tournament of 10,000 years this time had a broader scope, and there was a tournament specifically for venerables. Of course, apart from venerables and pioneer sea-state powerhouses, heaven creation powerhouses also flocked to participate. For example, the powerhouse who was leading the team with Han Fei and the others this time was the First Lord, Pan Litian. Due to the death of Qiu Shouzong, the Emperor of 10,000 Scales seemed to have become much more cautious. A mere land of revival number 3 was able to cause the Lord of Earth Qiu Shouzong to die. In that case, the journey to the Divine Capital Dynasty was long. How could there not be an expert to oversee it? Apart from Pan Litian, the 6th Lord, Qi Tonghai, was also going to the Divine Capital Dynasty. Apart from the 10 Great Lords, 5 or 6 heaven creation powerhouses also joined the team for the tournament of 10,000 years. Han Fei guessed that apart from Pan Litian, Qi Tonghai was also going to participate in the tournament of 10,000 years. As for why Pan Litian was excluded, Han Fei thought that people like Zhao Honghuang and Pan Litian were already on the verge of attaining Dao validation. It was not for the so-called fortuitous encounter, but for an opportunity. At least, Zhao Honghuang did not need to participate in the tournament anymore. Pan Litian was leading the team because he could take care of the overall situation, and he might also be there to find some inspiration. However, Han Fei did not know the entry criteria for heaven creation powerhouses, so he naturally did not know who would participate. If the participants were all at Zhao Honghuang's level, he would not participate and would just watch from the side. Otherwise, participating in the Heaven Creation Tournament would be no different from courting death. With Pan Litian as the leader, the Heaven Creation powerhouses led Han Fei and the others in the chaotic wasteland for about 5 months. Finally, Han Fei and the others saw a ray of light. It was as if the first light of dawn had appeared in the sky, bringing light to the world. Pan Litian said, "Everyone, keep up." Buzz, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A moment later, the group of people rushed out of the darkness and appeared in a world of light. Here, they saw the surface of the sea, which was not frozen. Many people saw the sky for the first time. They saw the blazing sun, the blue sky, the white clouds, and the clear blue sea. Subconsciously, almost all the heaven-opening experts unconsciously looked in the direction they had come from. Within their range of perception, they sensed sparse floating ice, and the seawater behind them rarely surged with any large waves. It was as if there was darkness behind them, and light in front of them. The two were extremely discordant, yet they seemed to be embedded together. Pan Litian shouted, "Everyone, listen up. This was the exit of the primal chaos wasteland. This was also the outside world. The journey to the divine capital dynasty of the Eastern Sea's divine prefecture was long and arduous. As for me, it's impossible for me to protect you all the way. Therefore, you'll have to walk your own path from now on." You want to walk by yourself? Pan Ning asked, "Where is the Shindu dynasty? Where should we go?" Pan Litian smirked. "I won't tell you the way to the Shindu dynasty. Also, I won't protect you all the way. From now on, this will be your last trial before you head to the Shindu dynasty. Although the divine capital dynasty is to select 150 pioneer sea cultivators, you must know that just because you're chosen doesn't mean you'll definitely be able to participate in the tournament." Gasp. What? There's no map. How are we supposed to go without a map? There's still a trial. Many people widened their eyes. They thought, why do we still have to go through a trial here? Hearing this, Han Fei didn't care at all. He even frowned slightly. If this was the case, everyone was scattered. What was the danger of this trip that Imochi mentioned? However, Pan Litian said, "I'll be frank with you. If you can't even find the Shindu dynasty or make your way there, it'll be useless even if you participate in the tournament because you're trash. Therefore, to prove that you're not trash, do everything you can to get to the Shindu dynasty. Oh. By the way, there's 50 years to go until the tournament begins. You'd better hurry up. Based on my estimation, it'll be difficult for 100 of you to reach the Shindu dynasty in 50 years. Those who can't make it, just give up. This path isn't destined to belong to you." Gasp, 50 years. They were a bunch of pioneer sea cultivators, and they might not even reach the Shindu dynasty in 50 years. How far would they have to go? Even Han Fei was speechless. However, he quickly realized something. The 50 years that Pan Litian mentioned was not the time for them to travel the entire way. He mentioned that the path would be filled with difficulties and obstacles. Therefore, this trial was actually meant for them to overcome the difficulties and obstacles. That was why it was called the last trial. Many people gasped. So, Pan Litian is just sending them to the exit of the chaotic wasteland? As for how to reach the Shindu dynasty, they'll have to rely on themselves. Interesting. Han Fei's lips curled. Finding a path was too easy for him. It was even meaningless. However, at this moment, Bai Ranran glanced at him. The first squad has 5 members. Tianheng, Yu, Pan Ning, and Li Xinhao. Han Fei? Han Fei asked, "Isn't this the last trial? Can we form a team?" Bai Ranran said, "You've been selected into the first squad. You're my team member." Han Fei cursed in his heart. If they really left together, he wasn't sure if he would kill Bai Ranran and the other 3 personally. However, thinking of Imochi's reminder, Han Fei did not turn her down. He simply nodded. However, he knew Pan Ning, but he had no idea who Li Shenhao was. At this moment, Pan Ning and a fat man walked to Bai Ranran. To be honest, it was the first time that Han Fei had seen such a fat man in the 10,000 Scales tribe, a tribe that had scales all over its body. The scales swayed on his body like ripples. His belly was like that of a woman who had been pregnant for 10 months. Apart from that, the fat on his face was almost falling off. Seeing that, Han Fei naturally walked to Bai Ranran's side. Other than Bai Ranran and the others who had formed their own teams, the rest of the 150 people quickly grouped together and formed dozens of smaller teams. There were only 2 or 3 people who were alone, and those who were alone also formed teams. Pan Litian did not say anything about that. Because they had just left the chaotic wasteland, they did not know much about the outside world. If they encountered any danger, they might not be able to handle it alone. However, a team of 3 or 5 people was a powerful team. They were all at the peak of the sea expansion realm. Even if they encountered a heaven-opening realm enemy, they might still be able to fight them. At least, they might be able to escape. Pan Litian said, "I'll be waiting for you in the Divine Capital Dynasty." As he spoke, Pan Litian nodded at the other heaven-opening realm experts. Then, they all left. Han Fei rolled his eyes inwardly. He really did not want to form a team. If he had the time, he might be able to kill everyone except Pan Litian. That would be a lot of resources. Han Fei was thinking about what Mochi said. Did it mean that there would be danger? When would it come? It would be 50 years. God knew what kind of danger they would have to go through. If there were too many dangers, it was not impossible that Bai Ranran and the others would all die in the end. He did not want to form a team with such a group of people. Not only was it slow, but it was also inefficient. Bai Ranran said, "What do you think about setting off to the Divine Capital Dynasty?" Li Shenhao, the big fatty, chuckled and said, "Captain, we must find a sea expansion realm creature in the sea outside and ask them first. After all, we've never been to the outside world." As he spoke, Li Shenhao was still smiling. He seemed to be saying that he was stupid and that he was a good person. Pan Ning was considered normal. She said, "That's indeed the best choice. I've read in an ancient book that the sea we're in can no longer be called the outer sea. This place is called the wilderness outside the city. It's very, very vast, even larger than the chaotic wasteland. It's said that there are many wilderness nomads in the wilderness. They've built many wilderness cities, towns, islands, and so on. It's said that the city of the nomads is made up of nomads from the wilderness. As long as we find such a settlement, we can get a lot of information." Everyone couldn't help but look at Pan Ning. Li Shenhao exclaimed in an exaggerated manner, "Sister Ing, how come you're so knowledgeable? You even know things outside the wasteland?" Han Fei and the others couldn't help but look at Li Shenhao. Is this guy crazy? He feels like he's discovered a new continent. Why is he so shocked? Besides, the corner of Pan Ying's mouth twitched. "You're so fat. Why do you call me sister?" Li Shenhao, however, didn't care about that at all. He clicked his tongue and said, "As long as we find this wilderness camp, we can throw energy crystals at them until they call us Grandpa." Everyone. Chapter 2239. Han Fei had no idea how someone as pompous and vain as Li Shenhao managed to get into Bai Ranran's team. Anyway, the guy couldn't be as stupid as he looked, or Bai Ranran wouldn't have accepted him. However, after hearing Li Shenhao's name and surname, Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Who is this guy?" Before Bai Ranran introduced him, Li Shenhao chuckled and rubbed his hands. "Brother Feng Lu, I'm from the number 18 farm, and Li Datsai is my father. I've long admired Brother Feng Lu's elegant demeanor. Brother Feng Lu single-handedly broke through the scavenger arena. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope that Brother Feng Lu can take care of me. My Li family only has 386 brothers, and I'm the only one who can come to this 10,000-year competition." While they were talking, Li Shenhao took out a star shell and stuffed it into Han Fei's hand under the gaze of Bai Ranran and the others, as if he had never taken the star shell in his hand. Han Fei intended to refuse, but when he scanned it with his senses, he discovered that there were 20 million energy crystals, a billion ultra-quality spiritual stones, and 10,000 kilograms of earth vein spring in the star shell. It was too much even though it was just a greeting gift. Xue Fei's annual income wasn't much higher than that when he was in charge of the number 80 farm. Han Fei was going to give it back, but then he thought of something else. Why wouldn't he turn down the resources that were delivered to him? Li Shenhao didn't even look at the star shell. He simply stared at Han Fei with a smile. Seeing that Han Fei did not return the money, he was instantly reminded of his father's words. In this world, money is everything. As long as you are shameless enough to give them a favor, even if you don't, you won't lose anything. Everyone will think you're weak. This is a good way to hide your true identity. Li Shenhao firmly believed in that. Even Yi Fenglu, who was as cold as an iceberg, accepted his bribe. While giving the greeting gift to Han Fei, Li Shenhao said, "Seriously, Brother Fenglu, Sister Ying, Boss Ran, and Brother Hong, did you each drop a star shell just now? You were too careless. Thankfully, I picked them all up." After saying that, Li Shenhao was about to stuff Pan Ying, Bai Ran, and Tian Hong. Pan Ying's face darkened. "Take it back." The corner of Bai Ran's mouth twitched, and she called out in a low voice, "Li Shenhao." Neither of them took it, but Tian Hong actually reached out and took it. "So, just because you're wearing a suit of iron and others can't see your face, you don't need to care about your face?" Li Shenhao smiled and said, "Ah. What a waste. Sister Ying, Sister Ran, you guys are really too wasteful. If you dropped something, just pick it up. Why don't you want it? Forget it, I will reluctantly keep it for you. Don't worry, if we need to spend money on this journey, I'll definitely pay for it all." Han Fei was speechless when he saw Li Shenhao's calm face. As the saying goes, as long as you're not embarrassed, others will be the one who's embarrassed. It was the first time he saw someone stuffing money into someone else's pocket in such a refreshing and refined manner. At this moment, Han Fei even wondered if this guy had bought the first squad with money. As for embarrassment, Han Fei wasn't. Yi Fengliu's face had always been expressionless. The only thing he was thinking about at this moment was whether or not he should rob the fatty. As the saying went, one shouldn't show one's wealth, and the fatty was showing a lot of it. However, on second thought, Han Fei felt that it was unnecessary. No matter how many resources the fatty had, he wouldn't be able to expand his origin sea for another 10,000 kilometers. It didn't seem necessary to rob him now. In comparison, Han Fei suddenly felt that the fatty was more flexible. Also, he had met Li Datsai, the owner of the number 18 farm, who was truly wealthy. It was unnecessary to cheat his son, but he should cheat his father. Han Fei put away the star shell and fell silent, as if he didn't care about Li Shenhao's background anymore. Pan Ying's impression of Han Fei was greatly reduced. She thought to herself that he was bought over by such a small favor. What a loser. Bai Ran said, "Then let's find a creature in the Pioneer Sea realm and ask him where the nearest wilderness settlement is. We'll make plans after we get some basic information." When Bai Ran and the others were about to leave, a young man suddenly said, "Bai Ran, there is strength in numbers. Your first squad and my second squad are two of the strongest squads. Why don't we go together?" Han Fei knew who the newcomer was. The man named Yi Qingzhou had gathered a bunch of experts. There were 8 of them in his second squad, and none of them looked weak. Bai Ran glanced at Yi Qingzhou indifferently. "There are too many of you. The trial is meaningless. Let's go our separate ways." Yi Qingzhou smiled. "Then have a safe trip. See you in the Divine Capital Dynasty." After traveling tens of millions of kilometers, Bai Ran paused for a moment, and Panning said, Ran, Yi Qingzhou doesn't seem to have good intentions. I'm told that he's very jealous. We should leave him alone." Bai Ran said, "He won't do anything on the surface. Let's go into the void. This place is close to the wasteland, and the creatures here don't seem to be very strong. Let's go further away. One day later. They were already very far away from the wasteland when they were rushing at full speed. The creatures here were getting stronger, and there were more and more creatures in the venerable realm. Another 2 days later, Han Fei and the others met the first creature in the Pioneer Sea realm. Although they only met one creature in the Pioneer Sea realm after 3 days, they all knew that it was just a wild guess. The outside world was so vast that they might not be able to cover all of it in 100 or even 1,000 years. Now that they had met a creature in the Pioneer Sea realm, it meant that there were many experts in the outside world. The creature that Han Fei and the others caught was a sea mussel. It was discovered because it was too big and its body was as wide as 100 kilometers. Obviously, this sea mussel didn't seem to think that there would be any danger in this place, so it lived here. It concealed itself with the strength of a king, but revealed a big straw, which was disguised as a cave in the mountain like an undersea chimney. This would make many creatures voluntarily crawl into its mouth. Among the 5 of them, Bai Ranran didn't like to fight unless she encountered a powerful enemy. Tian Hong had always been unapproachable. After Han Fei saw the big mussel, he just stopped and didn't take any action. Only Pan Ying and Li Shinhao were left. But when Li Shinhao saw this creature, he exclaimed, "What a big live sea mussel! It's not an ominous creature. It's so plump. It's simply a work of art." Anyway, Han Fei had taken the money, so he didn't care what Li Shinhao said. However, before Li Shinhao finished, the sea mussel that was trying to escape was poked a big hole by Pan Ying. Han Fei said indifferently, "Your work of art is broken." Li Shinhao. Li Shinhao never thought that Han Fei would respond to him. Even Bai Ranran and Tian Hong couldn't help but look at Han Fei. In their impression, Han Fei was the same as them, indifferent and indifferent. It never occurred to them that Han Fei would talk to an idiot like Li Shinhao. At this moment, Pan Ying stood straight on the mussel and shouted, "Answer my question, and you may live." The mussel hurriedly begged, "My lords, please spare my life. I'm just a mussel born in a remote sea. I don't care about worldly affairs. I know what you want to ask, and I will try my best to answer you." Pan Ying glanced at Bai Ranran and the others. Seeing Bai Ranran slightly nod, she said sternly, "Tell me, where is the nearest wilderness nomad camp?" "Hey! My lord, this place is not close to the nomad camp. This place is close to the border of the chaotic wasteland. If you want to reach the wanderer camp, you will need several months to get there." Pan Ying raised her eyebrows. "So far?" The mussel said, "My lord, it's very far for me, but it's not far for you. My lords, if you keep going deeper into the wilderness, you will encounter more and more nomad camps." Pan Ying said, "I'm asking about the nearest one. Why are you beating around the bush? You have already reached the sea expansion realm and have been living on the border all year round. How can you not know? Tell me, or I don't mind searching your soul." The mussel was horrified. "My lord, please spare my life. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. It's less than a month to the west of here. There's an island called the Hidden Island. Many independent cultivators gather there. They don't like fighting and only pursue slow cultivation." "Humph. Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Pan Ying was about to slap the mussel to death, when Bai Ranran said lightly, "Let it go." The mussel was horrified and hurriedly thanked her. "Thank you for sparing my life, my lord." However, the big mussel ran away with a whoosh. It was extremely fast and directly disappeared into the void. Bai Ranran said, "There's no need to kill your way there. We're new here, and we should be careful." Chapter 2240. Even though the clam had run away, Pan Ying felt that she had already received the news. She looked at Bai Ranran and the others and said, "It seems that the hidden island is not bad. Shall we go there?" Bai Ranran nodded slightly, indicating that she had no objections. However, when the 3 of them were about to move, they saw that Han Fei and Li Shinhao had no intention of moving at all. Pan Ying asked, "What's wrong? Be careful." Li Shenhao smiled and said, although Sister Ing performed very well just now, subduing a living clam that was like a work of art, and asking for such important information about the camp in the wilderness, it's still not enough. However, I think we can find another sea expansion cultivator to ask. In any case, a few more days won't make any difference. Pan Ing frowned. Do you think this clam is lying to me? With that little bit of strength, would it dare? However, Bai Ranran's heart shook, and she immediately said, let's head in that direction first, and ask another living being along the way. A day and a half later, a group of people swept across the vast sea. In the past, they had always lived at the bottom of the sea. It was rare for them to be able to move about on the surface of the sea. How could they not be excited? Who would want to stay at the bottom of the sea? Pan Ying's eyes lit up when everyone sensed that something was amiss. Just as she was about to make a move, she suddenly discovered that there was a saber hilt in front of her. Pan Ing, what are you doing? Li Shenhao, you go. Li Shenhao chuckled and said, well, can you all show up later? This might lower its guard. They had no objection to this, but Pan Ing frowned. Did Yi Fenglu not trust her? Could it be that he was inferior to this fatty? But then, they saw Li Shenhao make a move. He didn't even move. He directly landed near the sea cucumber hidden under the seabed. Li Shenhao, fellow Taoist, the wilderness is boundless, and it is fate that we met. I mean no harm, I just want to ask you for directions. Hee hee. Li Shenhao did not exude any killing intent, and his qi and blood were not moving. If one did not know better, they would think that he was just an ordinary fatty. As for the sea cucumber, he felt that his aura had been locked onto. If it weren't for the fact that this fatty didn't have any killing intent and looked kind, he would have attacked him just now. Buzz, the sea cucumber shook its body and drilled out of the seabed, looking like a half-grown child. Although his eyes were vigilant, he was willing to talk. He said, you want to ask for directions? Li Shenhao laughed and said, ha! Fellow Taoist, I am Li Shenhao. I came here to search for a secret realm, but I didn't expect to get lost. There are no records of this place on the sea chart. Can I ask you if there are any wilderness nomads camps here so that I can get a new sea chart? Li Shenhao took out a star shell with a smile, and said, fellow Taoist, it must be fate that brought us together. Consider this information a bribe from me. We're all in the wilderness, and it's not easy for us to survive. Please do us a favor. The sea cucumber looked into the star shell and saw that there were many top-grade spirit stones and several 100 kilograms of earth-vein spring water. Although the amount was not a lot, it was enough to buy a piece of information. Moreover, this kind of business was an unexpected windfall. In this godforsaken place, it was not easy to meet such a benevolent person. Immediately, the sea cucumber said with a smile, fellow Taoist, if you want to find a wilderness camp, there are only 2 within a month. One is to the east, where there is an ascetic cultivator camp with a king overseeing it. You can exchange some resources there. However, the ascetic cultivator camp is not completely fixed. Occasionally, they will go back and forth in the southeast, northeast, and east. So, it doesn't matter if you can't find it there. You can go to the southeast or northeast and look for it. You will definitely find it in 2 months at most. The sea cucumber man saw that Li Shenhao was smiling and didn't look like a bad person, so he continued, I only know the location of the other one. It is a dream island in the west. It is said that there are treasures on that island, but it is not easy to get to that island because it is shrouded in fog all year round. Several of my friends went missing there, but some people came out after entering and even obtained benefits. Li Shenhao said in surprise, Treasure Island? Isn't it the wilderness nomads camp? The sea cucumber said, although it is a camp, it is not on the island but on a big ship outside the island. Of course, the big ship is often not there. Big ship? Li Shenhao didn't know what a ship was, so he was puzzled. The sea cucumber said, well, it is not a very big ship, only about 100 meters long. You know, some creatures don't like to live in the sea. Li Shenhao laughed and said, thank you very much, fellow Taoist. By the way, are there any bigger nomads camps nearby? The sea cucumber man said, no, this place is too close to the wasteland. Who would be willing to come here? Only those who can't live in the depths of the wilderness will come here to fight for resources. Li Shinhao said, thank you for telling me, fellow Taoist. We will meet again. The sea cucumber smiled and said, fellow Taoist, I suggest you go to the ascetic cultivators' camp. It is safer there. Hey. Okay. After a while, Li Shinhao came back, but at this moment, everyone was looking at Pan Ying. Obviously, everyone had heard the conversation between Li Shinhao and the sea cucumber. At this moment, Pan Ying's face was red. That damn clam, I should have killed it back then. Li Shinhao chuckled. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. Although there is no hidden island, it is probably the dream island. The clam didn't lie to us. Pan Ying said, it wants to trick us into taking risks. I think we should go to the ascetic cultivators' camp. There's no need to take risks. However, Han Fei paused. A trial is not a place to take risks. Pan Ying said, that doesn't mean we're going to take risks, right? Our destination is the divine capital dynasty. Han Fei glanced at Pan Ying indifferently. The purpose of the trial is to grow. You even want to avoid this little danger. Are you going to participate in the major competition of 10,000 years? Pan Ying was speechless for a moment. Am I the only one who is timid? Li Shinhao looked at the two people who were at each other's throats. Pan Ying was a disciple of the Pan family's new generation. Pan Ying's talent was extremely high, but it seemed like she was being completely suppressed by Yi Fenglu. Bai Ranran soon made a decision. She said, it's a long way to the divine capital dynasty. We've just left the chaotic wasteland, and according to the description of the two pioneer sea realm creatures we met, this should be a remote place. Even if there is danger, it shouldn't be so dangerous that even the first squad can't resist it. Let's go. Pan Ying nodded slightly, but for some reason, she disliked Yi Fenglu more and more. He was always bickering with her. He made a fool of himself by asking for directions, as if she were not as useful as Li Shinhao. In fact, Han Fei did think so. Although Li Shinhao was fat, he was very smart. Besides, not everything in this world could only be solved by force. Li Shinhao was rich, so he could solve any small problem with money. That was Li Shinhao's advantage. 1 month passed. When they sensed an island shrouded in white mist, their eyes all lit up. To be honest, although they saw countless creatures along the way, there were few strong ones. Most creatures seemed to be afraid of the chaotic wasteland and didn't dare to approach it. Meanwhile, when they saw the inhabited area, it meant that they were about to leave this so-called wilderness borderland. Bai Ranran said, there is no so-called big ship around, and the mist outside the island can't penetrate it. The entire island is no more than 6,000 kilometers long, and we can vaguely see the shape of the mountain. There are fewer and fewer creatures around, and their strength is getting lower and lower. The island should be dangerous. After briefly explaining the situation, Bai Ranran said, let's go. Let's go to the island. Hey! Pan Ying asked, Sister Ranran, are we going to go to the island? Li Shinhao also said, Boss Ranran, should we be more cautious? Bai Ranran said indifferently, this is not a place where spiritual energy gathers, and there are no excessive changes in the Tao. The sea is normal, and it is not a place where strong people live for a long time. So, we can go to the island. If there is danger, we can retreat. Let's go in together. Even if we really encounter danger, there will be very few living beings here that can stop us. Han Fei thought to himself, Bai Ranran's analysis is quite accurate. Indeed, the feeling this island gave him was nothing special. Although there were signs of danger, the danger was not high. Besides, he could also feel a slight concentration of spiritual energy in the surrounding white mist, which meant that there should be creatures on the island, but they would not be very strong. Since the danger was low, Bai Ranran naturally had nothing to be cautious about. Therefore, The 5 of them barged in without any scruples. After they entered, they immediately found that this layer of mist had no effect of blocking them, but only concealed the appearance of the island. As soon as they entered, they saw that the entire island was a huge primeval forest. On the island, there were rolling mountains, and about half of the areas could not be detected by perception, because those places were mostly covered in mist. As for the source of the mist, they all looked at the center of the island, where the mist was the thickest. All the mist seemed to disperse from there. Bai Ranran said, "Something is wrong. In the perceptible area, the strongest creature is only a venerable, and it can't detect us at all. It seems that the most dangerous area should be the mountain range in the center of the island." And Han Fei's perception was actually far better than that of Bai Ranran and the others, especially his soul power, which became more and more powerful after exceeding 5 million points. Bai Ranran and the others couldn't see the area in the center clearly, but Han Fei vaguely saw that there was an ancient tree more than 3,000 meters high there. And there seemed to be a simple village below it.